Well, hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to Minds Matter Pittsburgh. Um, Today is going to be a workshop series. You're going to have 5 workshops to help heal your mind naturally. So we have everything from exercise, yoga, to maternal depression. Also, we're going to look into how mental health is affecting the youth and suicide rates. So we're going to be talking about a lot. Black Girl Health Foundation does this all across the country. And by the way, did I mention that I am the executive director and founder of the foundation, Portia Johnson? And the foundation does these Minds Matter events in different cities. And so far, we have done 10 since 2020 in different cities. This is our fourth time in the state of Pennsylvania. This is the first time in Pittsburgh. So yes, so we were really excited about that. And a special thank you to Highmark Wholecare, who is our big partner and sponsor, making this possible to do this and bring this here to the city. So let's also, mention that, since 2020, we made mental health a big priority, with COVID hitting and really striking a lot of families very badly. From everything that we saw on the news to unemployment rates dropping, to people getting really sick, losing their loved ones. Mental health was extremely, impacted. And so, the need for these Minds Matter events definitely grew. And, for people in different communities struggling, Minds Matter has brought a lot of clarity, a lot of motivation, inspiration, and a lot of healing because I'm a firm believer to be an advocate of your own health, right? And to be proactive. Yes, there are some amazing doctors all across the country, but no one's going to care more about you than you. And Minds Matter helps to give you the tools to find out the other options that are out there. That's what it's all about. Give me the options. Let me know what else is out there. Let me know who does this and does that. And then I'll choose. But I need to know what's out there. So that's what Minds Matter is all about. Um, so I won't keep talking because I can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. I'm going to get right to it. And with our first kickoff presenter. Our first kickoff presenter is actually from Highmark Wholecare. She is the Senior Director of Behavioral Health at Highmark Wholecare. Over the past 25 years, her work has focused on the physical and behavioral health needs of underserved populations, and we are so happy to have her with us today, Dr. Latika Jones. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone, and just welcome to this amazing event. I am so excited to be here with you today. As mentioned, my name is Dr. Latika Davis Jones, and I am the Senior Director of Behavioral Health at Highmark Wholecare, formerly known as Gateway Health Plan. Yes, formerly known as Gateway Health Plan. I first want to start off by applauding the Black Girl Health Foundation for developing this amazing program. Highmark Wholecare is proud to sponsor Minds Matter Pittsburgh, which aims to tackle major issues affecting Black women's mental health. This event is timely because we know that 1 in 5 Americans will experience a mental health challenge in his or her lifetime, and the pandemic has only exacerbated this. Today, almost 41% of American adults are struggling with a mental health condition stemming from the pandemic, right? And it increases to 75% for those between the ages of 18 and 24. So our young people are struggling. And we know that this has led to an increase in stress, anxiety, depression, right? Suicide, substance misuse, and overdose deaths in Black and Brown communities. This event is important because we know that women are approximately 1.5 times more likely to report a mental health challenge as compared to men. And when you think about the African Americans and other communities of color, we know right now that they're reporting higher levels of anxiety and depression when compared to their white counterparts. So today, I'm here asking everyone participating to help create a culture of openness, acceptance, and understanding about mental health. Please recognize that words matter, and how we talk about mental health could either hinder or help someone in accessing the services that they really need. I really want to emphasize this. If you don't take anything else away today, I want you to remember that mental health conditions do not discriminate. I'm going to say that one more time. Mental health conditions do not discriminate. So we must prioritize our mental health just as we prioritize our physical health. And today's workshops, what I'm so excited about is that today's workshops will provide us with an opportunity to do both. So thanks again to the Black Girl Health Foundation, and a big thank you to all that have made the commitment today to focus on your mental well-being. Portia, I'm going to turn it back over to you, but to all, please just have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jones. I love the fact that you said words matter, because that is so, so important. Words do matter. And we have to make our mental health a priority. I thank you for, being here and supporting our organization. And again, thank you to Highmark Wholecare, formerly known as Gateway. Again.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Jones. All right. So now we'll go right into our second kickoff presenter. And that is Miss Rochelle Jackson. She serves as the founder and director of the Black Women's Policy Agenda, an initiative to address the complex challenges of Black women and girls, because they are so complex all across the greater Pittsburgh region. So without further ado, Rochelle, thank you so much for being a part of our show.
Good morning, Portia, and good morning, everyone out there in the virtual world. Again, my name is Rochelle Jackson, and I am the founder and director of both the Black Women's Policy Agenda and the newly formed Black Women's Policy Center, which we have just celebrated a year. We are a year old now. We just celebrated our first anniversary. And we advocate for and center Black women in the greater Pittsburgh region in a variety of ways, and including promoting self-care and mental health, which we have been focused on through the Black Women's Policy Center for the past 6 months or so, and are excited about continuing to do that work, and excited about some other things that we are trying to do around self-care and mental health, particularly for Black women. It is certainly a pleasure to be joining you all for this Minds Matter virtual event. I have been an economic and social justice advocate for more than 20 years in this region. And my work as an advocate has always been informed by my personal experience as a Black woman, daughter of a single mother, and my being a single mother of 4 children myself. And I'm no expert on mental health, but I am a very big advocate for mental health, particularly for Black women. And I'll tell you why. As a young child, I watched my mother deal with the stressors of being a Black single mother in her own ways, and mostly in unhealthy ways, like self-medicating. And as a single mother myself, I certainly could relate to the stressors that my mother felt as a single mother. But when I was pregnant with my last child, I suffered a very traumatic domestic and sexual assault attack from my children's father. And once I got myself and my children to a safe space, my focus was on being a mother to my children and delivering a healthy baby. I totally neglected myself and the trauma that I had just suffered. I didn't know any better, because that was what our culture, my culture, taught me to do. Be strong, suck it up, and keep it moving. Fast forward a year after the birth of my son, and I was in a complete state of depression and anxiety, and I had no idea, what was going on. And it got to the point where I couldn't even take care of my children. And that was very unlikely for me, because my children were my world. So now, this was 22 years ago, when mental health was still very much a stigma in our community. But I knew something wasn't right, and I had to get some help. And against the advice of others, because if I'm not okay, my children are not okay. So what I remember most, though, from that experience, I did get some help and I recovered from that. But what I remember most from that experience is that no one was checking for me. Despite the trauma I had suffered, whether it was doctors, whether it was friends, whether it was family, no one was checking for me. Mental health was not something that was discussed. Trauma was not something that was addressed. And it turned out that I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and had no idea. Women and girls, we have got to be more intentional about maintaining our mental health. And we've got to be more forthcoming when we need help doing that. Black women need to thrive and not just survive. For decades, Black women in this region, the greater Pittsburgh region, have barely been surviving. Black women in this region need programs, tools, and support to improve their mental health and well-being. Mental health is typically not embraced by the Black community. Therefore, Black women feel the pressure of managing on their own. Like I said, suck it up, keep it moving, be strong, without the proper support and tools. And they are less likely than white women to seek mental health care. More than 70% of Black households are headed by Black women, and their health and well-being directly impacts Black children. Culturally sensitive care is necessary for Black women to be accepting of mental health care. And since 2% of psychiatrists and 4% of psychologists providing care are Black, it is important to provide alternative methods for care and well-being, which is why I'm so excited about this Minds Matter event, because you have a number of workshops that are giving women different tools, different ways, alternative methods for maintaining a healthy mental health, right? Maintaining a mental state of being. And we've got to develop those healthy ways to address our mental health challenges. We've got to create circles of support for Black women. We've got to educate Black women about mental health and well-being. And we got to connect Black women to those additional resources and to address mental health challenges. So most importantly, we definitely have to focus on self-care. Self-care is not selfish, and it is important. It is an important part of our overall health and well-being. And it's something that we've got to do more of. So I commend the work of the Black Girls Health Foundation. I'm excited that they are doing something here in the Pittsburgh region for the first time. Excited about that, and look forward to more events and more partnerships. And I hope that everyone who's participating has an amazing experience today, but more importantly, walks away with a broader awareness of mental health and the importance of including it in your overall health and well-being. So thank you so much, Black Girl Health Foundation and Portia, for inviting me to share in this experience. And I will now turn things back over to Portia.
Rochelle, I could really relate when you talked about, having a child and, all your focus was on that child and neglecting kind of yourself and your own self-care and how that impacts your mental health. Because I went through the same thing when I had my, my toddler, and it's all about that child and, and it brings you down. It definitely, and it throws your mental state off track.
Absolutely.
And so I get it. And no one cares again. Everybody else is on that baby and they don't see you kind of deteriorating. You know what I'm saying? You don't see you. So I could totally relate. Totally relate to that.
Absolutely.
Rochelle, thank you so much for joining us and being a part of this workshop series. We totally appreciate your support.
You're welcome. And I hope you have an amazing event. And I'm looking forward to more things down the line.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Famika, just these comments, I want, comments I should mention that we want to see your comments. Please comment. We want to hear from you. I would love to get a hey girl, hey. I want to know how you're liking the workshops, your feedback, if you have any questions. Famika mentioned how can we start changing our narrative, especially was raised not seeking out mental health services. Changing the narrative I think starts with being proactive, and it starts with, shows like this that, help to inspire people's stories, hearing people's stories that maybe they have the same struggles as you and you can relate to them. When Rochelle just mentioned, hey, I've gone through it after having a child, I could relate to that. Those are stories of inspiration, then allows you to then, look further into seeking coverage or seeking some sort of help. So I think that's what it's about. It's about more awareness, talking about it, people sharing their stories, and then other people can relate to those stories. And then having events like this where we give options and other resources on what people can do. So it starts for some people, it starts today. With this show, Minds Matter Pittsburgh. So again, please comment. A couple of other things I want to mention is Black Girl Health. If you like what you see, if you like what you're hearing today, we would love for you to join our sisterhood. You can join our sisterhood and become a member at membership.blackgirlhealth.com. Again, that is membership .blackgirlhealth.com, and we'll also have that in the comments on Facebook. Most of the presenters, a lot of the presenters that you see today are part of our membership. They are partner members. There it is. It's on the screen. Awesome. Those our partner members are the ones who host our workshops all across the country. So not just here in Pittsburgh, but, hosting, in Harrisburg or in Philly and in all different cities. So if that sounds like someone like you, if you're a fitness trainer, if you're a health coach or whatever, or a therapist, whatever, and you want to be a part of our sisterhood, then I encourage you to join at membership.blackgirlhealth.com. All right, so we're going to get started, and we're going to get started with some yoga. So we got to center ourselves. We got to center ourselves because we got a lot of information to talk about today. So we got to be focused. We got to be grounded. We got to be at peace. So we're going to take a commercial break, and then we'll be back with yoga. Stay with us.
Black Girl Health Foundation presents Minds Matter Pittsburgh in partnership with Highmark Wholecare. Additional sponsors include Housing Authority, City of Pittsburgh, Highmark Allegheny Health Network, the Kingsley Association, and Black Girl Health, LLC.
Sometimes we need that extra encouragement. We need support, and Black Girl Health is a movement.
Oh, I love getting all the emails with the recipes and now the new workout videos that we get daily. I now get CrossFit videos right to my email. So that means that it holds me accountable and I have something to do every day.
I work out of High's Fitness Yoga Studio, and so it just helps to bring more people into my class, know that I'm out there teaching yoga in the community.
Being a BJH member means connecting with other women, networking, and being a part of a movement.
I am Kim Nelson Wright and I am Black Girl Health.
I'm Kimberly Perry, and I am Black Girl Health.
Sherelle Moore Tucker, and I am Black Girl Health.
Hey there, welcome to Pittsburgh Black Girls Health. My name is Brittany and I am a local yoga teacher in the Pittsburgh area. I'm super excited for this because just like our host and presenter just said, resources for Black women and their mental health has been very sparse. I'll give you a little bit of background about me. I've been practicing yoga for about 5 years. And my own mental health journey was very similar to our prisoner before. I had my little girl and I was 70 pounds heavier, and I just completely stopped taking care of myself. And I was looking for something that would help me ground and bring my life back together. And then I found yoga, and that yoga is a tool to help check into who you are and how you're doing. So just like she said, no one was checking for me. Yoga is a great way to check for yourself. You check into your body and work on your mind, and you get out that negative energy, because being a mom, being a Black woman, we're often the householder carrying everything, and yoga is a wonderful tool to help you clear that, let it go, and let go of any stress. It's very good to pair with mental health professionals, of course, but this is wonderful because you can do it from home, you can do it outside, It doesn't have to be an hour on the mat. I'd like to break that myth for you now. You don't have to spend 60 minutes on your mat to feel good, but even 20 minutes can make a difference in your day. Just some fun facts about yoga. It was created to help prepare the mind for meditation. So if you felt like meditation hasn't worked for you, I encourage you to give yoga a try because it will help you clear your mind, like our host said, center ourselves and get grounded. Often when we're stressed out, we live in our brains, and that stress and worry, either we're stressing about the future, we're worrying about the future, or we're living in regret of our past, constantly replaying negative things that have happened. And yoga is a wonderful way to bring you into the present. Yoga is also a great way to lose weight or manage your weight. It gives you awesome abs and arms and legs. And just to tie it into that mental health, it gives you a moment to yourself. It gives you that peace, that calm, that moment to take a deep breath. It's that personal check-in. How you're breathing. Are you shallow breathing? Are you quickly breathing? Often when we're in survival mode, we shallow breathe, which induces the stress hormone cortisol in our body. And so I want to help you get rid of some of that today. So come join me on your yoga mat. And I'm going to just take a few steps back. And we're going to start with getting grounded into this moment. So we're going to start with a beginner yoga pose called Tadasana or mountain pose. We're going to step with our feet hip widths apart. We're going to have a slight bend in the knees. Don't want to lock your knees out. And we're going to roll our shoulders back. Our hands are down at our side. We're going to turn our hands forward. And we're going to start with taking deep inhales into your belly. Take a nice deep inhale in. Exhaling through the mouth. Inhaling through the nose. Exhaling through the mouth. And we're going to do this a few times together. Inhaling through the nose. Exhaling through the mouth. Imagining your inhale is an ocean wave coming over. And your exhale is the wave going back out to the ocean, relieving and releasing any toxins and any stress. Inhaling deeply. And exhaling. Beautiful. We'll do that a few more times. Inhaling deeply. And exhaling. Beautiful. We're going to just take a few regular breaths together, in through the nose, out through the nose, noticing your chest and belly expand on your inhale, exhaling, inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the nose. And we're going to start. This is one of my favorite ways to reset the energy, especially if you're feeling stressed. We're going to do what's called arm salutations. So we're going to inhale, slight bend in the knees, bring the arms down or around, lifting them up, bring them above your head. They're touching at the top. I don't think you can see my hands. And then we're going to exhale, bringing them down to heart center. So we're just going to inhale, scoop and lift. I like to imagine I'm scooping up love for myself. And then exhale, bringing it down to heart center. We'll do that a few times. Inhale, down, around, and up. Exhale, bringing the hands to heart center. We're going to inhale the arms up. And exhale, bring them down. Beautiful. And from here, we're going to take some shoulder rolls. So take those shoulders towards the back. Our shoulders carry a lot of stress. We're just going to inhale and exhale here. And then we're going to roll those shoulders forward, articulating the shoulder joint, getting fluid into our joints. If you work at a computer, this is a great pose for you, or a great movement. And we'll slowly bring our shoulders down. And from here, we're going to bring our right ear to our right shoulder. This is another neck and shoulder releaser. So we're bringing our right ear to our right shoulder. And we're just going to breathe here. Take a nice deep inhale into the belly. Exhaling, releasing, lowering that left shoulder just a little bit more. Inhaling deeply. Exhaling completely. And then we're going to inhale, lift our head up. We're going to take it over to the other side. Left ear to the left shoulder. Right shoulder's coming down. Take a nice deep inhale into the belly. Exhaling completely, allowing the right shoulder to come down a little bit more. Inhaling into that space. And exhaling, creating a little bit more. And we're going to inhale here one more time. And exhale. Beautiful. We're going to begin to lift our head up. And now we're going to take some gentle neck circles. So we're going to start with our right ear to our right shoulder. And then we're going to bring our head forward, chin to chest. Left ear to left shoulder. Bringing the head back, gaze comes up. And we're just going to take gentle neck rolls towards the left, being very careful with your neck joint or the neck axis. This is another great way to relieve stress from looking at the phone or being on the computer for hours. And you want to breathe here. If you hear some popping and releasing, that means your neck is thanking you. And then we'll gently go to the other direction. So now we're rolling our neck towards the right. Remembering to breathe here. Bringing the chin to chest on the forward, the ear to the shoulder, and bringing the head back. And we'll do that a few times, remembering to inhale deeply and exhale deeply. And we'll slowly bring our head to center, and we'll come back on up. And I have one more neck pose for you. I'm going to turn to the side so you can see me do it first. But we're going to be flexing our head forward and back. So we're going to bring our chin to our chest. And then we're going to inhale, look up. Exhale, bringing your head forward. Inhale, look up. Exhale, head forward. This is another great one for working at the desk and looking at our phone. Inhale, lifting. Exhale, forward. Inhale, lifting one more time. And we'll exhale, come to center. And so from here, we're going to take our feet out a little bit wider. So if you're a beginner and you're not quite sure of your balance, you can keep your stance a little bit closer together. But if you're, seasoned to yoga, or you feel like you're balanced, you can send your feet out wider. And we're going to be coming into second pose if you're a dancer. So we're going to turn our toes out 45 degrees. And then we're gonna sit down into our knees. Our knees are above our heels. And we're gonna come into goddess pose. You can have your hands on your knees. You wanna tuck your pelvis under and just get nice and grounded. I love goddess pose. I feel like it's made for us. And we're gonna begin to flow with our breath here. So we're gonna inhale, lift our arms up shoulder height. And then exhale, bending the knees. I like to say I'm holding the moon or holding the earth, whatever you like. We're gonna inhale, lift the arms up. Exhale, bringing the arms down in front, holding the moon. Inhale, lifts you. Exhales, bends the knees. Inhaling, lifting. Exhale, bringing your arms down. Inhale up. Exhale down. We'll do that one more time. Inhale, lifts you. Exhale, bends the knees. And we're going to place our hands on our knees again. This is a wonderful shoulder relief stretch. So as we bend here, we're going to slowly begin to bring our right shoulder forward, bending the left elbow. And we're turning, looking over our left shoulder. Then we're going to inhale, lift our heart center straight. Then exhale, bring the left shoulder forward, gazes over the right shoulder. Inhale, back to center. We'll do that one more time each side. And then we're going to exhale, turning towards the left, gazes over the left shoulder, bringing that right shoulder forward. Inhaling to center. Exhale, left shoulder forward, gazes over the right shoulder. Beautiful. Inhale yourself center. We're going to go ahead and straighten the legs. What we're going to do is turn our right foot forward in front of us. So now our right foot is in front. We're going to adjust our left foot to go to the side. And again, if you're not stable, you can always bring your feet closer together. We're going to work our way into Warrior Two. So we have our left leg bent, our knee is above our ankle. We're grounded in all four corners of both feet. You're pressing into the back of your foot in the back foot. And then we're going to inhale, bring our arms up shoulder height here. And we're going to breathe here, grounding, strengthening our body, releasing any stress. And I really like to connect my movement with my breath. That's how we can stay present in this moment. So just like we did, we're going to inhale, lift our arms up this time, straightening that leg. Exhale, bending the knee, coming back down. Inhale, lifting. Exhaling, Warrior Two. Beautiful. Inhale, lifting. Exhale, bending that knee. Inhale, straightens you, lift your arms. Exhale, bends the knee. Beautiful. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn and do this on our other side. So we're going to go ahead and straighten that front leg. Now you're turning your left foot forward and you're turning your right foot towards the side. You're doing wonderful. Then we're going to slowly bend into that right knee. We're grounding in all four corners of both feet. We're bringing our pelvis under. We don't want to stick the booty out. We'll bring those arms back up. Get nice and grounded, looking over that right middle finger. Breathing here. And then we're going to flow with our breath. We're going to inhale, lift us. Exhale, down. Inhale, lifts you. Exhale, down. Inhale, lifts. Exhale, down. Inhale, lifting. Exhale, down. Beautiful. You're doing so good. And so we're going to go ahead and straighten that leg. We're going to come up. You can bring the feet together. And we're going to make our way down to the mat. And so we're going to do that by doing some arm salutations. I'm going to turn to the side so you can see what that looks like. And then we're going to go into a forward fold. So our feet are hips width apart. Again, slight bend in the knees. Don't want to not lock them out. So we're going to inhale the arms down, around, and up again. And then we're going to exhale, slowly begin to pour forward with your heart as if you could pour out through the crown of your head. If you can reach the floor, that's amazing. You can also place your hand on your shin or up on your upper thigh. But if you can reach the floor, that's amazing too. And so from here, you can have a deep bend in the knee. I like to imagine stress pouring from the crown of my head when I'm in this pose. Go ahead and release the chin, bringing it to your chest. And then slowly begin to walk the knees out. So you're bending in one knee, bending in the other, getting a nice stretch. And then we're going to slowly begin to inhale, lift ourselves halfway up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, lifts you. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lifting. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, lifts. Exhale, fold. Very good. And so from here, I also love to grab either elbow, and this is called ragdoll. And you just slowly begin to sway yourself side to side. This is great traction for your lower back. Breathing here. Again, pouring out any thoughts, any worries, just for this few moments. And you'll slowly begin to place the hands down. And then we're going to come down onto our knees. Okay, you come down to your knees. I just want to make sure, okay, that we're all good here. So right now, we are on all fours, our hands and knees. If you are having issues with your feet, you might want to tuck your feet. If not, that's fine too. I like to tuck mine. What's important here is that your shoulders are above your wrist and your fingers are spread nice and wide. And we're going to take some cat-cow. This is another wonderful pose if you work at the desk. Our spine houses our nervous system, and our nervous system affects our mental health. So when we work our spine, we're also helping our mental health. And so what cat-cow looks like is we're going to inhale, drop the heart up into cow. Exhale, rounding the back for cat. We're going to inhale up. Exhale, cat. Inhale, lifts you. Exhale, rounds. Inhale, lifts. Exhale, rounds. We'll do this just a few times at your own pace. Exhale. And we'll do one more together. We're going to inhale, lift. Exhale up for cat. And when you're up in cat this time, hold this pose for a few moments. Our back normally doesn't get this stretch. So go ahead and shift side to side, working those shoulder muscles. And then exhale, come to neutral. And so right now we're going to stay right where we are, but we're going to take some wrist circles. So we're just going to slowly begin to shift towards the right. Then we're going to bring ourselves forward, taking ourselves to the left, coming back. Just like we were doing with our neck, we're also doing this for our wrist now. Our wrists do so much for us. They text, they send emails, they scroll on TikTok, but they often don't get the love they need for doing all those things. So we're just taking these circles around, showing our wrists some love. And then we're going to go in the other direction. Remembering to breathe here. And then we'll slowly find ourselves back into center. So from here, we're going to bring our big toes together behind us and our knees come out a little bit wide. You could also bring the knees together. I encourage you to find what pose works best for you. Knees wide helps relieve the back a little bit more, but if you have back problems, knees together may be easier for you as well. We're going to work our way into child's pose. So we're going to begin to place the hands forward. We're going to bring our hips to our heels, and then we're going to go ahead and mount the heart forward towards the floor, placing the forehead on the ground. This is a beautiful place. I like to imagine releasing all the negative thoughts into the earth, out of my hands, out of my forehead or third eye, if you follow the chakras. And we'll just take a few deep breaths here. Going back to those deep inhales, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Inhaling deeply through the nose. Exhaling through the mouth. Inhaling to the back, expanding your back body. Exhaling through the mouth, allowing yourself to melt a little bit more. Inhaling deeply in, expanding the body 360 degrees. Exhaling through the mouth. Inhaling in. Exhaling through the mouth. One more nice deep inhale in through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Beautiful. We're going to slowly work our way back on up. This time we're going to come into low lunge or Anjaneyasana. So you can come up onto your knees. We're going to bring our left knee forward, our left foot forward. We're on our right knee. And so if you're a beginner and you're not quite sure, you can stay in where you're at now, what I like to call 90-90. Your back leg is at a 90, your front leg is at a 90. If you'd like a deeper stretch, go ahead and place both hands down. Bring your right knee back just a little bit. You're pressing into that left foot and into your right knee, squaring the hips. Also, you can imagine scissoring the thighs, bringing the
Hi, Brittany. I think we're having some technical issues with Brittany. And she's going in and out. Okay, so I think we had about, oh, maybe she's trying to get back in. Hold on real quick. Let's see. Brittany, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Brittany? I don't think we can't hear you. So it seems like we're having some technical difficulties with Brittany. So I think we had about, I was enjoying that. You probably were enjoying that too. I think we had about like 10 minutes left of yoga, 10 or 15 minutes left of yoga. And unfortunately, we're having some issues with her live stream. So we can try to get her back. Let's go to Brittany one more time. If not, we're going to have to move on to the next workshop. Brittany, is there, if you hear me, do you hear me, Brittany? All right. Well, we're going to have to wrap up. We're going to move on to the next workshop. Unfortunately, we're going to have to cut yoga a little bit short, 10 minutes short, because we're having some technical difficulties with her reception. So we are going to take, what we're going to do is we're going to take a commercial break. I hope you guys keep the comments. Please keep the comments coming. I want to hear from you. So don't stop with that. But next up, we're going to tackle your mental health. We're going to tackle anxiety, especially due to the COVID pandemic, when we come back with our therapist, Tyra Garner. So stay with us. Don't touch that dial. All right.
Sometimes we need that extra encouragement. We need support, and Black Girl Health is a movement.
Oh, I love getting all the emails with the recipes and now the new workout videos that we get daily. I now get CrossFit videos right to my email. So that means that it holds me accountable and I have something to do every day.
I work out of High's Fitness Yoga Studio, and so it just helps to bring more people into my class, know that I'm out there teaching yoga in the community.
Being a BJH member means connecting with other women, networking, and being a part of a movement.
I am Kim Nelson Wright and I am Black Girl Health.
I'm Kimberly Perry, and I am Black Girl Health.
Sherelle Moore Tucker, and I am Black Girl Health.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope everyone is doing well. My name is Tyra Gardner. I am a psychotherapist, and today we will be talking about conquering healthy coping methods for anxiety and depression. We're going to talk about, how we're able to conquer anxiety and depression through the pandemic. Yes. 1 second, y'all. Okay. So, all right. So, thank you all for joining us today for this Black Girl Health Summit out of Pittsburgh. I hope everyone is doing well today. So, during the last 2 years, many people have experienced an increase of depression and anxiety, causing a number of mental health issues such as stress, anxiety, anger, rage, suicide. Because of the whole idea of being having to be trapped in the house. I use the word trapped because at this point, a lot of people felt like, oh my goodness, I could not go anywhere. People were feeling like as much as I try to do things, I want to be able to go outside. I want to be able to live a normal and productive life. And because of this, they have been, told, by the CDC and, a lot of government officials, okay, well, we have to learn how to do things differently because of this virus that's been going around. And so with this has been causing so many people so many issues because it's like now, okay, I have to think a little bit more carefully on my health and how I'm going to be able to manage and handle things a whole lot differently than what I once was. So it's like conforming to the new normal, being able to change your life and change how you do things to live productively, right? So today's presentation will provide tools to cope with depression and anxiety during difficult times. Okay, next slide. Okay, how do you handle depression? So handling depression, a lot of people would resort to using eating, sleeping, shutting down, not talking about their issues, not talking about their problems, sitting back and finding themselves, you know, becoming overly stressed about things that have been happening within their lives, and just basically not being able to communicate the way they should communicate with others about the things that they have been plagued with, because of the whole COVID-19 and pandemic crisis. And so what we need to do is be able to learn how to handle these situations when they occur. Next slide. Okay. All righty. Okay. Again, once I said, most people like to sleep or eat or want to be alone when they are experiencing depression. Some people, just want to, try to figure out what they're going to do, how they're going to navigate through their situation. How am I going to be able to create positive changes for myself during this time? Next slide. Okay, so symptoms of depression and anxiety are, we have mental symptoms, we also have emotional symptoms, we have depression or general unhappiness, we have anxiety, we have agitation, we have moodiness, irritability, we have increased anger and rage. We also have feelings of being overwhelmed and not knowing how to handle that feeling of being overwhelmed. We have loneliness and isolation, other mental and emotional problems that come out of it, as well as health problems that can come out of it is, because of increased stress, we can also develop a heart disease and things of that sort. And so that's definitely something that we have to, work on, so that we can be as mentally healthy as we can, as mentally healthy as possible. Next slide. Okay. Can we go to the next one after that one? Thank you. Okay, so I'm covering a little bit. I just thought I'd cover a little bit on maternal depression. Many women experience maternal depression after they, give birth to their children. And I know later on today we will be having more conversations about this topic at hand. Many women experience, an increase in interpersonal conflicts and relationships and insecurities, more family level conflict, and overall family functioning. Disruptions in these family processes, in turn, are related to higher levels of children's psychological distress and adjustment problems. Next slide. Okay. As we've seen over the past 12 months, we've seen suicide has been on the rise. We've seen a number of, African American men and women taking their own lives due to feelings of not being able to move forward in their lives, right? Because of feeling anxiety and increased levels of anxiety, feeling that they have no one to talk to, right? And feeling like they are in this world alone. Suicide is not a mental illness, but a serious potential consequence of of treatable mental disorders that include major depression, bipolar, post-traumatic stress disorder, borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, substance use disorders, as well as anxiety disorders and eating disorders like bulimia and anorexia nervosa. And this was something that Dr. Bahandari talked about in an article that I have read recently. And this is something that we definitely need to be able to identify the triggers, right? Be able to know how we will work on helping people be able to navigate through this, and be able to feel comfortable to say that I am not okay, and being able to talk to us, talk to a professional about the feelings that they're having, talk to a loved one, and being able to tell them when they're not feeling okay. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, warnings of suicide. When a person is experiencing increased sadness, they're having mood swings, withdrawal, sleeping problems, changes in their personality or their appearance, trauma or a crisis, having self harm, experiencing dangerous behaviors, preparation in regards to personal items, putting their personal affairs in order, right? Selling their belongings or giving things away to people, they start to become very threatening, or they have an increased discussion with talking about death. These are our most common warning signs of suicide. Next slide. Okay. 10 ways that we can cope with chronic stress caused by depression and anxiety is: number one, we need to rebalance our work as well as our home environments, right? Number two, being able to build in exercise, a regular exercise routine, right? Also, being able to eat well and limit alcohol and stimulant use. Being able to connect with supportive people, being able to find people that you connect with, that you find are in your corner, that also helps, right? Also, carve out times for a hobby, carve out times that you can do what you need to do, right? Doing what you need to do. Alrighty, next, practicing meditation, stress reduction, and yoga, which we just had a few moments ago, which was an awesome yoga session a little while ago. Being able to get enough sleep. Sleep is very, very, very important. Um, Being able to bond with your pet. A lot of people have pets these days, and being able to interact well with the pets, and being able to interact with your family, because having that bond with family is just as important, as it is with your pets. Being able to take schedule and take a vacation, because a lot of people don't realize the importance vacation is. Taking a vacation will definitely keep you calm. It will, give you a new perspective, because you're able to see all of the good things that's happening out there, and being able to you know, appreciate all of the creations that's out here, and also seeing a counselor, a coach, or a therapist. That's also a good way that you can cope with being able to cope with stress and depression and anxiety. Okay, one question is, what can we look for if a person is not showing any outward signs? If I have seen many people we consider to be strong to have taken their lives. Okay, so what you can look for when a person does not outwardly show their signs, one thing I would say is, number one, definitely talk to them. Sometimes a person may be pretty quiet and might not really talk about what they're going through, right? But I would say just pay attention to some of their behaviors, because action speaks a lot louder than the words that someone will say, because a person will not all the time let you know that they're going to be okay, right? So I will definitely say pay close attention to their actions. And if you feel comfortable enough with that individual, being able to say to them, are you okay? Because this is like the number one question that a lot of people don't seem to ask. People, they don't seem to ask people, are they okay? you know um and so just being having that level of comfort and being able to say it to them and being able to engage them in a conversation. Now, I'm not going to say the person is, definitely going to be able to talk to you or will convey anything to you about that, because a lot of people will, continue to mask how they're feeling, right? And so what we want you to do is not to have that situation, we don't want you to, internalize them for shutting down. Don't internalize the behavior, and start feeling bad and thinking that you did something wrong when you're speaking with them, right? We want you to be able to just sit there and be able to comfort them in a level, where they will feel, feel that it's okay to talk to you about how they're feeling. You can always make the suggestion to take them to a therapist if they want someone to guide them and help them along. Okay. And so if a person isolates themselves and will not speak to anyone, if a person isolates themselves and doesn't speak to anyone, I would say still continue to keep the lines of communication open with them. Speak with just keep talking with them, just casually engage in conversations with them. And if they still continue to isolate, you can talk to them about seeking professional help, contacting a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a therapist about what they're going through. Sometimes, if the person is comfortable with you in regards to being accepting of you making this suggestion for them, they will say, okay, I will try it, because a lot of people don't want to talk to strangers, and that's one of the things that as a mental health professional I'm trying to break that stigma, because I want people to be able to feel like you're not alone and that you're able to talk to therapists just like you can talk to your primary. Now, if the person is, not wanting to talk to you, you can find out, like, if they do have any type of medical issues going on, right? They can also go and talk to their primary physician about what they're experiencing, and let the primary physician can make recommendations. Some people who use clergy to speak to about some of the things that they're plagued with, and that's okay. Being able to talk to them, because they need to be able to talk, be able to have someone there. But I know the situation sometimes can be uncomfortable, for you, but do what you can to try to make them as comfortable as possible. Can I have the next two slides? Thank you. Okay, so what I'm gonna give y'all now is I'm gonna give you some stress and anxiety and depression symptoms, right? That people, experience. So when we think about stress and anxiety and depression, a lot of people focus on a lot of the mental things that they see, mental health issues that they see people may be experiencing, right? But some of the physical symptoms that arise from all of this is people have aches and pains, they have changes in their sleep patterns, they experience headaches, right? Also, a change in eating patterns, trouble concentrating, um, grinding of the teeth. This is something that people, take for granted, and they think, oh, it might be because of something else. It's just because I have a overbite or something like that. But believe it or not, teeth grinding is a part of, can be a part of stress, right? Diarrhea or constipation. That's a form of a symptom that people have when they're extremely stressed. Exhaustion, uh, nausea, dizziness, constipation. All of that is a part of it. Also, chest pains and rapid heart rate is also a physical symptom of stress and depression. Loss of sex drive, right, is also a symptom of of stress, and a person getting frequent colds or flu. When our body, when something is going on with our body, and let's say our mental health isn't right, we also, our physical health can also become impaired by it, right? So we have to do what we have to do. What's most important is being able to, if we start to feel that anxiety coming on, being able to start utilizing some of the coping skills that we have out there, so that we can start being able to manage this in a more effective, an appropriate way, in an appropriate manner. Now, some of the mental symptoms of stress, right, is emotional symptoms, which I went over previously: depression or general unhappiness, anxiety and agitation, anger, moodiness, irritability, feeling overwhelmed, that sense of loneliness and isolation, and other mental health or emotional health issues, where we like tearfulness, because some people might, experience a lot of crying spells because things are not right emotionally for them. And so now it's time to be able to sit down and be able to say, okay, I'm not okay, and I need to get the help to talk about what I am experiencing. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so ways to manage yourself amid COVID-19 stressors, right? Now, what I just reviewed is some of the things that people have been experiencing throughout this COVID-19. And so, ways that we need to start focusing on to put us in a mindset to be able to overcome all of this is: number one, we need to be able to take a break from the news. Okay. A lot of us watch the news on a daily basis, and we see a lot of things happening on the news, right? And when you watch the news, that is total information overload, right? Which can be very, very upsetting, right? So we need to make an effort to switch off your screens or the television once in a while. For myself, I'm gonna be completely transparent. I like to watch a lot of comedies and a lot of mindless television, right? To help me to not be so overwhelmed over the things that we see, with COVID-19. We know that it's been an increasing rates of crime, and a lot of things have been happening all over. A lot of racial injustices have been occurring. So, it's like when we watch the news, we know that, granted, the news is the news, and we go there for information, right? Limit the amount of information that you intake from the news, and make sure that go to like, use it for what you're going to use it for. Like, if you're going for the weather, go for the weather, and just turn it to another channel, because at this point you don't want this to put you back in that negative mindset, right, of that's plaguing you with stress. So right now we got to work on being able to de-stress ourselves. Next slide. Taking care of your body is next, right? Being able to meditate, eat a well balanced meal, take deep breaths, and exercise, right? Aside from staying safe, ensure that you're taking steps to keep yourself healthy, right? So making sure that we continue to do our hand washing, as the CDC advises us to do, right? We also want to make sure that some people are still wearing masks. If you're still wearing masks, make sure that you keep that on as well, if you choose, because right now it's all choices, right? So just make sure that you do what you can to keep yourself as healthy as possible, and as safe as possible. The next up is making time to unwind. So it's like throughout COVID-19, right? A lot of people have been working from home, and children have been doing schools at home, right? And so it's only been in this recent school year, where everybody has been pretty much being mobile again. We seeing more people returning into the workplace, right? We seeing more children going back to school. But what's happening is, as we're going back into our new normal, right, we still have to remember we got to take time to unwind. Use a few minutes of your day to do something that you enjoy, especially if you are working at home. Take a short break to rest your eyes and your mind. It's like if you're working from home, being able to go outside, take a deep breath, enjoy the weather. Right now we're approaching summer months, being able to embrace and enjoy all of this, and so it's like now just being able to, you know, try to get ourselves in a more positive mindset through everything. I noticed since the pandemic, I was a big extrovert and now I have become very introverted. What can you suggest to get back into my old ways? Okay, so what I will suggest to go back into your old ways is, I would say, I'm a list person. So I would say write out a list of all of the activities that you used to do prior to the pandemic, right? And as you write this list out, right, look at the top three of which activities was most important to you, right? And as you look at those top three, right, let's see how we can start working towards moving ourselves back into doing them. Now, you don't have to do everything, right? I would say brace yourself. If you want to try one activity a month to get you into that, to this new normal, and to get you back into the things that you used to do, the things that you found comfortable, I would say definitely do that. You know what I mean? If you want to try one event every 2 weeks, do that. But pace yourself, right? Because the thing is, when we go full throttle and we push ourselves out there and try to do everything at once, it becomes overload, right? It becomes event overload. And the thing is, you don't want to put yourself in that situation where you become so overloaded, you become overwhelmed, you find yourself becoming stressed, about everything, about being in that type of environment, in addition to, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm doing too much. And, so we don't want you to experience that type of stress. So I want you to write a list out, pace yourself while acclimating back into a new normal, so that you can go back to enjoying all of the things you once enjoyed prior to this pandemic and COVID-19. I hope that answered your question. Okay, so next, being able to connect with others, and this, goes along with it. Talk to people you trust about your concerns and how you're feeling, right? Being able to check on your loved ones too. It would be nice to know that you're not going through a stressful time alone. See, that's the big thing when it comes to mental health. When you are experiencing something, you think that you're the only one, and you start feeling like I'm alone. And when we start having those type of thoughts, that's what brings on our stress. That's what brings on anxiety. That's what brings on depression, right? And that's what puts us put our mindset in a negative place. And that's what we don't want. We want to be able to have these open dialogues like we have here on Black Girl Health, where we can sit down and actually have these conversations, have workshops like this, and all of the ones that's coming after me that will help you, with overcoming the things that, you have been experiencing during this time, and it's okay to be able to connect with others, right. The way things are now, we know our precautions, we know what we need to do, so now it's just being able to, feel okay with not being okay, and feeling okay to share with others and talk to them about what you're going through. Next slide, please. Plan and prepare. Get recent information about local COVID-19 activities from public officials, as well as departments, public departments, right? Government officials have a lot of information, making sure that you're updated on everything that's happening in your area, right? Next, being able to create a list of important organizations and providers your household can call in a case of emergencies. I'm located in Philadelphia, and I know a few months ago, a lot of our government officials, they actually sent out a list which had a lot of the emergency telephone numbers and everything on it. So, and I know, with the state of Pennsylvania, they have been doing great about making sure that we are aware of all of the changes with phone numbers and different services that is happening. So definitely make sure that if you don't have a list provided to you by your state, make sure that you create your own list of what is important to you and adding this so that you have this for a case of emergencies, right? Choose a designated room that can be used to separate family members who are sick or under monitoring. So, should you have a situation that arises within your household, be able to, have a separate room available, right? So people can quarantine safely, and so everyone else in the home won't be affected by this, because that's definitely important, to be able to have that, because we know that also causes a lot of stress. Next slide. The situations may be overwhelming, but coping with stress will make you, the people you care about, and your community a whole lot stronger. Okay. And last slide. So, yep, we already reviewed the 10 ways to cope with chronic stress, but I will revisit this again, which is rebalance work and home, right? Building a regular exercise routine, that always is very, very helpful. Being able to eat well and limit alcohol and stimulants, connect with supportive people, being able to carve out time to do a hobby or carve out me time, just having time to be able to be with yourself and just being able to embrace and being able to think about things that might be on your mind that you would like to just sit back and just process, even if it's reading the Bible or reading the Quran, whatever you have going on, just being able to have that me time, carve out that time for yourself, being able to practice meditation, stress reduction, or yoga, you know making sure that you get enough sleep, bonding with your animals, bonding with your family, and being able to take time to either have a vacation or have a staycation. Either one is very important to having a productive lifestyle and being able to combat stress and depression and anxiety during this COVID-19 pandemic. We know the new normal is here. We know we have to adjust to all of the different things that has happened, because we know that there's a lot of people out there that experience vaccine hesitancy. With that, you have to make sure you do all of your research, make sure that you are, make sure that you're knowledgeable about everything before you do anything, when it comes to the vaccinations. With the mask, I know, sometimes we are in a lot of places where we see people with masks on and we start to feel uncomfortable. If we don't have a mask on, or if they don't have a mask on, we'll start having that uncomfortable feeling, right? But me and being able to know that I'm going to do what's safe for me and being okay with that. It's okay for you to, keep your mask on, should you choose to, right? This is your right. Everything is a choice, right? And so, when I look at the word CDC, I look at control, decisions, consistency, and it's being consistent with ourselves, right? Okay. And next slide. Okay. So I hope all of this helped everyone with understanding ways to cope with stress and anxiety. I want to thank you all for, participating and watching this summit today for Black Girl Health with the Black Girl Health Foundation. I want to thank Portia for, having this summit today. This is awesome. And I want everybody to have a great and amazing day. And if you have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to me. There's my contact information.
Tyra, thank you so much for being a part of this program. Tyra is a Black Girl Health veteran, a partner member, and a veteran at this, and appreciate all the insight that you gave us about COVID and how that has impacted our mental health. You're so right. Staying away from like negative things that will play with your mind, with the news, all of that. And even, and I'm not just, TV, the internet, social media,
Yes.
I, and I am like, and that's something that I need to be telling myself too, because the more I'm like, I'm on the internet researching things and stuff, it plays with your mind, and you really don't think it does, but it does.
It really does, and it was like, I love the question that came through in regards to how to get back into adjusting to the new normal. When you were extrovert, and because of the pandemic, now you become an introvert. You seen this? I love that question, because this has happened to a number of people, and it was just like, and I was talking to a client a couple of weeks ago, and she called me. She's like, "Tyra, guess where I'm going?" I said, "Where you going?" She said, "Bingo," and I was just like, "Oh, I was jealous, but it was just like," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm jealous because I didn't know it was a bingo game happening," but it was just like so funny, and it was just like, with that, with this particular client, we baby stepped it. And I said, baby step your way out. Don't, go full force, because when you push yourself out that door to start doing things, you find yourself doing too much, right? That's number one. Number two is putting yourself back in the mindset that, oh my goodness, do I have it? Do I have it? Because you've been around so many people, and the things, we don't want you to stress out. That's the last thing we want. We want everyone to be able to say, I'm okay. Just because I went out, I'm okay. I put my mask on. If you choose to wear your mask, because again, it's a choice.
Yeah, everything's a choice.
Everything's a choice, but I'm okay, and I feel okay, and I'm not going to allow this to continue to plague over my mind. I'm going to keep myself in a positive mindset by continuously saying affirmations. Saying affirmations to yourself is my number one tool, right? Especially when you're experiencing stress and anxiety and depression. No, I am good. I am okay. I am healthy. I am, and just whatever you feel in your statement with I am, and fill in the blank.
No, I love that. And just breathe. You know what I'm saying? Just, and I have to do that myself. Just breathe and just pause.
Yes.
Pause.
And it's okay to pause. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to take a pause, but
thank you so much, Tyra. You are definitely a treasure. So thank you for being a part of Black Girl Health, being a member, and thank you for your support for Minds Matter Pittsburgh. Take care, hon.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
All right. Well, how are you guys liking it so far? It seems like we're getting a lot of traction. People are saying it's really insightful. I want to hear from you. Please continue. Continue with the comments, continue with the questions. Our workshop presenters are here to answer any questions that you have, especially, post-pandemic. There's a lot of different things going on in people's mental head, like mind. Is it okay to like really come out, and should I, how loose can I be, wear a mask, not wear a mask. So we are continuing to be affected by our mental health, like with COVID. Even though things may seem like they have died down, it's still impacting people about the possibility of getting COVID. So our next panel discussion, we are actually, our next workshop is a panel discussion, and we're going to be really diving into COVID and vaccine hesitancy. And kind of what's going on in Pittsburgh, the state of Pittsburgh right now. And we're also going to talk about preventative stuff. So that is up next. Thank you, Judy. Thank you so much for watching, hon. So stay with us. Do not leave us. We have our panel discussion about COVID up next.
sometimes we need that extra encouragement. We need support, and Black Girl Health is a movement.
Oh, I love getting all the emails with the recipes and now the new workout videos that we get daily. I now get CrossFit videos right to my email. So that means that it holds me accountable and I have something to do every day.
I work out of High's Fitness Yoga Studio, and so it just helps to bring more people into my class, know that I'm out there teaching yoga in the community.
Being a BGH member means connecting with other women, networking, and being a part of a movement.
I am Kim Nelson Wright and I am Black Girl Health.
I'm Kimberly Perry, and I am Black Girl Health.
Sherelle Moore Tucker, and I am Black Girl Health.
Hello, everyone. I'm back for our panel discussion. So our panel discussion is about COVID and vaccine hesitancy and prevention. And so we have four lovely ladies who are panelists today, and I'm going to get straight to it. So we're going to introduce them so we can get all the questions that I have hopefully answered, or most of them. We're going to introduce our panelists, and then we'll start flowing. So first, I would like to introduce Dr. Diane Felder. Hello, Diane.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So Dr. Diane Felder is board certified in both general psychiatric and child adolescents, and is possessing managed care experience, including clinical strategy and operations. Dr. Felder joined Highmark Wholecare in May of 2021 and serves as the Senior Medical Director of Behavioral Health there. So thank you so much, Dr. Felder, for joining us again. So next up is Dr. Tiffany Gary Webb. Hello, Tiffany. Oh, I can't hear you.
Hello.
Hi, Tiffany. So Dr. Tiffany Gary Webb received her BS in biology from Pennsylvania State University, and she has a PhD in epidemiology and from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. She is currently the Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And she also comes to us from the Black Equity Coalition. Thank you so much, Dr. Webb, for joining us.
Thank you.
Next up is Dr. Jules Scott.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello, Dr. Scott. Dr. Scott is a family nurse practitioner working in community-based primary care for nearly 2 decades. As a clinician, she has experience managing acute and chronic illnesses, providing woman and preventative care services. Thank you so much, Dr. Joel Scott, for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So Dr. Willa Doswell, hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So Dr. Willa Doswell is an African-American nurse, obviously, who has had over 35 years of nursing experience in health promotion work in the community through roles as a member of community health programs, director of church health ministries, and parish nurse in African-American churches in the Northeast cities, including 20 years in Pittsburgh. Thank you so much, Dr. Doswell, for joining us.
Well,
awesome. So if we can bring all the lovely ladies on the screen. Okay, we have everyone on the screen. So we're going to get right to it. And my first question is for Dr. Tiffany Webb. Starting off with you. I just want you to kind of paint the picture for us, what's going on in Pittsburgh. Can you let us know where Pittsburgh is now as it relates to positive cases? Do you feel individuals are choosing whether or not to vaccinate has played a role in the cases at this time?
Yeah, so let me just say a little bit about the overall numbers in Pittsburgh. So, as we know, since the pandemic started, we've had disproportionate cases for Black populations in Pittsburgh, unfortunately. So, we've seen in the beginning, the ratio was about 3-to-1 compared to Black populations. If you look now, it's about 1.3 times. So, we do have more cases. During the whole pandemic, we have had more hospitalizations and slightly more deaths. Okay, so this pandemic has affected us disproportionately. Where we are today is cases have, settled a little bit, but they are creeping up. And so if you look at the 7-day averages, the 7-day average this week is about 50 cases higher than it was last week. Okay, so we are not out of the pandemic. We are, still in, we're still dealing with cases. But one of the points that I want to make is that we just put on the video that when America gets a cold, we get the flu. Everything tends to be a little bit worse for us. So we as the Black Equity Coalition are recommending keeping up the mitigation strategies, even though, CDC and a lot of the officials are not recommending masking anymore, taking away a lot of the mandates and relaxing those things. We are still recommending washing your hands, wearing a mask, and watching your distance.
Good point. And please, for those who are listening, please comment, ask your questions, and we can pose them to the panelists. So anytime during this panel discussion you have some questions, we would love to hear from you. But really quick, Dr. Webb. So it seems like we're kind of on that incline,
Right.
from one week to the next. So do you think people are just kind of becoming more lax with, because it seems like the pandemic is over and like, I guess I don't need to get a vaccination?
So vaccination, let's talk a little bit about that. So we know that the officials are relaxing all of the requirements. Everybody's tired. People are tired of, of doing all the mitigation. But what we like to emphasize is that each time we've seen these cases decrease, they have crept back up. So when we stop the mitigation, then they creep back up. So a big part of that is vaccination. When you look at the Black Equity Coalition has been tracking vaccinations within the Black community since the rollout. What we see now in Allegheny County, the number of fully vaccinated people overall is about 72.2%. But when you look at Black residents, it's about 50.8%, and white residents, 65%. So we still have a long way to go to get to this herd immunity, in all populations. The other thing that we've been doing is tracking across neighborhood, because we're really interested in certain neighborhoods and what the vaccination rates are. And so when you look at the largest percentage of Black residents in Allegheny County, it ranges from a 75% vaccination rate in a place like Monroeville to less than 40% in Northview Heights and places like Rankin. So even though our county is at 70%, in different neighborhoods, we're not. So that means that your risk is going to be a little higher in different neighborhoods. So we've been working to increase vaccinations, to do, education, and then to, our stance on keep all of the mitigation practices going in our communities.
Dr. Felder, when you hear those numbers, and two, Dr. Fauci even also mentioned that, look, we're out of the pandemic stage, this week, the pandemic phase. So when you hear those numbers of, cases, do you feel that in your mind that, hey, people must have kind of gotten lax about getting the vaccination, or do you feel like, one way there or the other, like they got lax about getting the vaccination, or there are people who are getting vaccinated and maybe reinfected? Oh, I can't hear you. I'm so sorry. Ooh. Ooh.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. We can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's twofold. One is that some people have gotten lax. And for instance, I recently traveled for work and for vacation. And I noticed that initially when I traveled, everyone was wearing masks. Everyone was taking more precautions. For instance, on this last cruise, there was no requirement for masks. There was really no social distancing. So we have gotten lax because we think we're out of the woods, but we're really not. I think the other part of that is that there's still a hesitancy, and what we're really seeing, and Dr. Webb, you can probably comment on this, is that there's still quite a large percentage of minorities, especially African Americans, who are not vaccinated and who are getting infected, for the second or third time. And then those of us who are vaccinated, for instance, I was sick last week. Although my COVID test said it was negative, I had all the symptoms. And so I think we are being reinfected. And so I believe that we need to make sure that we're educating and say we're not out the woods. We really can't let our guards down right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Joel, did you want to piggyback off of that?
Sure, happy to. I think we're still really early, like as far as knowing variants that may arise. I mean, we've seen Omicron come through, we've seen the Delta variant, and there's going to be more variants. And so I think to really relax our standards and precautions right now it makes me a little bit nervous as well. And I echo what Dr. Felder said as far as traveling and seeing less people wearing masks. I do believe, everyone has their different comfort level. And so I personally still choose to mask oftentimes when I'm in a crowded space. And I believe that if someone's considering it, seeing other people that are masking sometimes gives them that boldness to say, okay, yeah, I'm not so comfortable either. I'm going to put my mask on. And so I think really being comfortable, like assessing your personal risk factors, the risk factors of people who you are in community with, whether that's at home or church or other places, and thinking about the greater good. And so I think, we're out of the pandemic is really sending a message that can be very dangerous, especially for people of color.
Thank you for that, Joel. Dr. Doswell, I think. So we're talking about this. There are a lot of people, Black people, who are still not vaccinated. Can we speak on, Dr. Doswell? Maybe you could start us off. Why? Why do you think there's that sense of hesitancy still, especially in the Black community? Dr. Webb mentioned the numbers. Why aren't there are a lot of African American people in Pittsburgh being vaccinated? What's your thoughts? Oh, I can't hear you. There you go.
I teach at the School of Nursing at the University of Pittsburgh, and I teach our students. And one of the things that we see with our students even is that to understand that we're masking not just for ourselves but for others. And in our community, we're very touchy-feely. And being a parish nurse, one of the things we see at churches who have open is people like to hug. They always have. The mask, for me, the mask at church keeps people from hugging. And we bump fists or we elbows or whatever. But I think there's a history of mistrust in this country that we've had, and it's hard. Unfortunately, we don't have as many African American healthcare providers, which might give some people more hesitancy. We need to talk to our pastors, and I know they're concerned about people coming out and paying, keeping the church going and so forth. But we have to try to keep people thinking about mitigation. Hand washing. That's one of the things we do when we go in the community. We teach the kids about hand washing. We give out brushes because not only your hands, but your nails. Kids are playing in everything and they got dirt under their nails, so we teach them how to hand wash. That's very simple to do. And wearing the proper mask. That's the other thing. And so those are the issues that I see. And we just have to keep at it, and maybe by example, as they see us wash our hands carefully, as they see us wear our mask when necessary, and it's okay to say, I'm putting on my mask today. It's okay.
Yeah, you mentioned a good point, about hesitancy also being that there's not a lot of Black healthcare providers and people in that mistrust and people seeing that, look, there's someone who looks like me. So then they probably won't misguide me. And does anyone want to piggyback off of that about the hesitancy before I move on?
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that because when we look at health disparities, one of the, like Dr. Doswell pointed out, one of the main factors has to do with mistrust of healthcare workers and not, especially in mental health, not having enough providers who you can identify with. And so, as people already have a basic mistrust, we are now getting, we have gotten a lot of misinformation in the media. And minorities in general tend to rely more on the media education as opposed to providers. And so that's where we, like a platform like this, which I'm great to see, is to educate, to break down those that misunderstanding and misinformation out there.
No, absolutely. You make a very good point. Dr. Webb, do we know in terms of, the landscape in Pittsburgh, what is the percentage of African Americans actually, I think you mentioned like when are they getting vaccinated?
Yeah, so it's about 50% now. And so
Okay.
we want it to reach about 70%. So we have some work to do. One of the things I wanted to add about the hesitancy conversation is that we have done a survey of Black residents in Pittsburgh about, COVID-19 in general. And so we're asking specifically about hesitancy. We have a scale that talks about trust. And so we're looking at that data. We've asked people everything from, what are your reasons for not being vaccinated? Do you intend to vaccinate your children? So forth. And so what we're finding again is the top reasons for not being vaccinated are fear, wanting to wait and see what's happening. I mean, that's getting now enough people have been vaccinated that people say, okay, well, the population's dealing with the vaccination, okay. And so we're looking at everything. So I just wanted to make the point that hesitancy is one issue, and we have lots of reasons that we would be hesitant, right? They're legitimate reasons. So us giving information, us being out in communities, us giving vaccination communities will help that hesitancy. But also just wanted to mention access as well. Especially in the beginning, access was a huge problem. Trying to get people out to different sites to get vaccinated and so forth. So we have been also trying to bring vaccination clinics to the community, to community settings, to churches, even to barbershops. So that's one of our strategies, to try to reach people who wouldn't come out to clinics or to other places to get vaccinated.
That's great. That's magnificent about the outreach. Jewel, I was just about to come. Oh, you want to piggyback off of that? I was about to come to you about for a different question, but yes.
Yeah,
Well,
just real quickly, I wanted to also add, I think there's also a lot of feeling that, well, I know this person got the vaccination and they still got COVID, right? And so I think really understanding that vaccinations may prevent disease, or they allow really is tested to make sure hospitalizations and death, that's really the outcomes that we're trying to prevent. And so if you get COVID after having a vaccination, oftentimes it's a much milder case. Your likelihood of being hospitalized or your likelihood of dying goes down. And those are the two major indicators that we're following as far as is the vaccine working? So I think sometimes there's a little bit of misunderstanding about what the vaccine is intending to do. And so people feel like, well, why am I going to get it if I know someone else who got the vaccine still got COVID? But what we know is your chances of living after you have COVID increases if you've been vaccinated. And so I think that's really important to clarify.
Do you think it becomes more of a challenge too? Because I think, people are also seeing, people die who have gotten vaccinated as well. And that has, and maybe that's not something that is really talked about a lot, but people are seeing that a lot, just on, the local level, their, friends, people they know. Do you think that deters people as well from being vaccinated, because they are also seeing people like die who have been vaccinated?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, that personal, real experience of losing someone is difficult and hard. And what we know is that the likelihood of dying after COVID goes down if you've had the vaccine. So is it 100%? No, it's not 100%, but it's really close. And so your likelihood, there are those cases, those rare cases, really, we hear a lot about them maybe because they are rare. So sometimes because they catch our attention because there's something that don't happen often. But if you look at the bigger picture, the likelihood of that happening is actually much, much, much lower if you've been vaccinated.
And just adding that can I just add that the dying because of the vaccine, that's pretty much probably not the case. And so, we want to, it's probably done as a result of COVID and the complications of COVID. And so just emphasizing that we as populations have more chronic diseases, more diabetes, more hypertension, so forth, which makes us more susceptible to the complications of COVID. And so when people are seeing someone die and they're attributing to the vaccine, it is probably not due to the vaccine. It's due to complications from COVID because of other issues.
That was really important to mention. Thank you, Dr. Webb. My next question, Jewel, I do want to, I was coming to you actually for another question. Dr. Jewel, if you could tell us what are some of the health disparities you would say Black women in Pittsburgh today are facing from the pandemic, now post-pandemic? What are you seeing like in your community?
So that, no, I'm like, feel free to jump in.
Yes, you scared on us.
I think one, big one, I think there's like delayed care. So there was a lot of care that was delayed during the pandemic. And so I think one of the really important messages is assessing those preventive care needs that maybe people skipped because it wasn't safe to go out at the time. And so thinking about those regular cervical cancer checks or pap smear, mammograms, all of these kinds of things that people kind of, say, well, not right now. We need to go back and make sure those things get done. We don't want to miss cases because of the pandemic. And, realistically, what we know about disparities and equity is that if there's going to be a population to be affected, it'll be us, right? Because trying to get time off of work, find access to a primary care provider, to get in to be seen, arrange transportation, there's many barriers. And so I think people need to be aware of these things that maybe we just didn't attend to during the pandemic for good reasons. I think the other thing that I'm seeing is mental health, the social isolation, the anxiety, I think the session before this was talking a lot about this, re-entering into society, into, socialization and like all the feelings that come with that. And so I think there's a mental health crisis right now. It's going to be big, and we need plans and strategies to address that. And I know that's something that Dr. Felder wants to jump in and talk a little bit more about, and happy to also talk about some of the ways that I see community agencies supporting that. I do some work with Healthy Start in Pittsburgh, which is an agency that addresses Black maternal health. And they have a Moving Beyond Depression program for Black mothers who maybe are struggling with postpartum depression. When you think about, having a baby during the pandemic and what social support usually looks like for people who are giving birth and what it looked like in the context of the pandemic. And so I think the risk for postpartum depression is something that we need to have as part of our conversation as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Felder, do you think that there has been an increase in biases that Black women and girls have faced, during the pandemic in the healthcare system?
I don't know if there's biases, but there certainly have been challenges. And just to add to what Dr. Scott was saying is that in mental health, with whether it's mental health or physical health, when it affects a Black female or a Black in general, we're going to see the incident may not be significant, especially in mental health, different, but the consequences are very different. And that has to do with the access. And for Black women, for instance, the overall suicidal rate and overdose is actually higher in whites. The problem we have in mental health is that when it affects a Black African American, we don't get the treatment. So it's more detrimental overall for us. We tend to get higher levels of care, like acute care, emergency care. We tend to get admitted more often, but then we're not getting the support we need afterwards. We're not getting the follow-up appointments. We're not getting the outpatient services that we need, and often some of the substance abuse. And I think as we look at going specifically with females, and one of the things we're trying to address as a managed care company is that when we look at appropriate, say, residential care or longer term care, there's a lower rate of admitting an African American female, especially if she's child dependent. There's a tendency to take, for instance, take a child away from a mother instead of putting her into a program. And that I think has increased with COVID. And then also just, I want to make sure I don't want to have time to give the other speakers a chance, is that we don't even know the long-term consequences of COVID-19. We are now seeing new diagnoses of psychosis that we hadn't seen before. We're seeing new diagnoses or overdiagnosis of schizophrenia. That's really, my job is to point out, no, this is not schizophrenia. This is a new diagnosis related to COVID. And so that's why we need to focus on making sure we have culturally sensitive providers who can recognize, who can understand what's going on and help our members, especially our females.
So essentially, you don't feel that there is enough access for Black women and girls in Pittsburgh for mental health resources?
No.
Across the board. Yeah. I know now we're talking about COVID, but across the board.
I'd like to add a couple of things.
Dr. Doswell, you want to piggyback off that?
One of the people that we don't look to for help, or at least how things are going, are our school nurses who see our children every day. And a lot of kids come by the nurse in the morning just to talk, and sometimes it's about these things that are bothering them. The other thing is our bedside manner of maybe majority healthcare providers. I was fortunate enough to go when I was in school to have an African-American neurosurgeon and watched him on the unit. And he would come into your room. He's a surgeon, so they go to surgery early in the morning. But he went on rounds and he would sit on the edge of your bed as though you were the only person that he had to see that day. And he got to learn things about people. So people who don't know who don't know the Black culture, that's the other thing. We try to tell the students, you need to know the cultural groups you work with. How do they like to talk? How, you have to spend time with people. Make them feel like, right now I'm focused on you, and whatever you have to say is important to me. And I think that will help people to encourage people to share things with you, not keeping exaggerated social distances. I'm gonna stand at the door because this is a Black patient and they may have COVID, or this. So I think those kinds of things are important.
No, Dr. Doswell, you made a good point about just more culturally competent providers and nurses in those schools are probably, one of the first touch points of reaching children a lot of times. And it's important for them to know the students that they're serving. And, I always say, and a lot of times this is a policy for a lot of police departments. It may not be a policy in healthcare systems, but being from the community you serve has been something that I think should be, executed more in different public service organizations, including healthcare. And I know in some police departments that is the case. Being from that community that you serve, because then you know that community, you know some of the people there, you know what they do, you know how they act. You know what I'm saying? And you already have that bond. So what if we apply that, to, a lot of these healthcare systems and providers, whether they're nursing schools or what have you? You know what I'm saying? So, that could also be, part of the solution. So, Dr. Doswell, I'm glad that you mentioned the nurses. Dr. Webb, I want to come back to you. Can you talk about, unemployment, and most racial groups in Pittsburgh lag behind, their peers in other cities. The lag seems greater with Black Pittsburgh women, in terms of unemployment. Can you give us a percentage of how this lag may have been impacted by the pandemic with Black women in Pittsburgh and unemployment?
Yeah, so I don't have exact numbers on that. I'll say that the gender equity report that we had in Pittsburgh in 2019 showed, that with respect to a number of metrics, it's very difficult to be a Black woman in Pittsburgh. And that certainly has not gotten better with COVID. What we saw is that many of us were frontline workers. So either, in grocery stores, we have a lot of Black women in nursing home care and so forth. And so being overly exposed. One of the projects that I'm working on is the racial and ethnic approaches to community health, where we're really looking at African-American neighborhoods and looking at all kinds of social determinants of health. So really bringing it back to not just employment, but housing, employment, education, economics, all of these things that are impacting our health outcomes, and really trying to come from a systems approach to address a lot of those things. So that's really what we're doing with REACH and with the Black Equity Coalition, and recognizing that COVID is what exposed a lot of the disparities, but disparities existed in these health outcomes for I've been studying them for decades, and definitely in these social determinants of health. And so dealing with those are going to help us get to dealing with some of these health outcomes.
There was a question that I'm going to go back to. You see on the screen, everyone here is saying the pandemic is over here too. How are you handling your children in school and COVID? So we, just picking back off of the impact on Black women and unemployment. And Dr. Webb obviously mentioning, there has been an extreme challenge, and there's disparities with Black women versus their counterparts when it comes to unemployment. When there's unemployment, there is more stress to how do I take care of my child? How do I take care of my family? Especially during COVID and post COVID. Can anyone, and I'll leave this open, I'm not going to necessarily direct it to one person or the other. Can anyone talk about how, the children in Pittsburgh have, been impacted, seeing, their families have their mothers, a lot of probably single mothers, have been impacted by, unemployment, all the stressors that have come with COVID, how that has impacted children in the city?
Well, I think, again, going to the schools, this is the time when I know in some of our school nurses, when the children come in the morning, making sure they've eaten, making sure they're drinking water. Interestingly, in the school setting, one of the problems we have is constipation. A lot of kids don't want to go in the bathroom and have a bowel movement because somebody's going to be in there and make fun of me. And so they don't drink, and they don't go to the bathroom. And so when they come to the nurse's room, she gives them a glass of water. Everybody comes in to get a glass of water. That's where also you can remind them again about hand washing, about how do I sneeze, about how am I wearing my mask? Am I wearing it properly? All of those kinds of things are helpful.
Dr. Joel, I know you work at, University of Pittsburgh. What would you say kind of what's going on there with the college students? And, how are they taking it post-COVID? Has it really thrown them off track and trying to be able to communicate with other students, being out of that remote environment? How are the communications, you think, on campus about keeping people still safe post-COVID? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I will comment briefly, and I think there's probably other people on the call that could probably even speak to it even better. But I think there's been a lot of intentional communication, clear, consistent communication about how we are addressing COVID, how the expectations for masking, the social distancing guidelines, what it looks like to re-enter classroom settings, and as we have seen a lot in the news recently with some of the athletes and the mental health of college students is also something that has to be thought about as well. They have had a very different college experience for the first 2 years. And so some of them are struggling. Some, going to college is it's an exciting time, but it's also a very challenging time, right? And so I think, building those relationships, finding community, that has looked very different. And so I think there are some areas where the university has been very intentional about mental health resources, including, normalizing it, really just talking about it. And I think that is something that's really relevant to the Black community, normalizing seeking mental health care, just as you would get care for a cold or for a headache or ear infection. If we're not doing well with our mental health, just reaching out for care, and whether that, I think one thing that we haven't touched on yet is what telehealth is going to look like going forward. We have, telehealth was already here pre-pandemic, but probably I would say most people have in some way experienced a telehealth visit since during the pandemic, and they maybe never had before. And so I think telehealth really has potential to open up some access that wasn't there before, but it's been something that the university has been able to tap into, as well as to provide mental health services. But I will also, there's other people who are in the university at different levels that could also speak to that.
Yeah, Dr. Webb, I know you are too, and it's so interesting you said telehealth. Black Girl Health Foundation is launching its outpatient telehealth mental health center. So that seems to be becoming more and more since the pandemic. The way that people are seeking care, and it could be even the way that we can reach more people, through telehealth. Dr. Webb.
Just adding to the educational pieces of it. I teach primarily graduate students, but a lot of them are younger. And last year, when we were mostly remote, they were really seeking connection and seeking in-person interaction. So we really had to do everything that we could to provide them with some experiences. And that, of course, was better this year, where we've been able to, have some in-person classes. We're having in-person graduation actually tomorrow. So I think we've had some evolution with that. Also, just wanted to talk a little bit about the educational outcomes in children. That's something that we're going to see the effects of for a long time. I'm speaking just from a parent. My children were home for over a year doing virtual school. I had the privilege of being able to work from home and being able to be there and help them, but there were a lot of children who did not have that experience. And so therefore their learning in that period of time during the virtual period has been stalled. And so what concerns me about so many different outcomes is that we don't even really know the impacts of what's going to happen right now. We'll be seeing the impacts years to come.
And college students, in terms of them being vaccinated, I'm sure that is the struggle.
No, not in the health professions, because
the students in the health professions.
Yes, they have to. They're in the hospital or they're in the dental clinic, so they wear masks. So they.
But in the general masses of students, like college students,
yes.
I mean that in general, I know across the board has been challenging.
Well, we had a mandate. So University of Pittsburgh and a lot of universities had a mandate. So, for example, in our School of Public Health, we have over 96% of our student and faculty population vaccinated. So that's a result of the institution really pushing the,
Stepping up.
exactly. But in other settings where that's not the case, I'm sure that the vaccination rates are much lower.
Well, that's good, because you mentioned just my next question was, what are some of the solutions? I know Dr. Doswell said, okay, people themselves can, do more good hygiene practices and washing their hands and wearing a mask still, I'm not letting go of that. You just mentioned, as far as on an institution level or education level, institutions need to step up and continue to mandate, different things. So, people don't just get lax. What are some other solutions? Dr. Felder, do you have, just any comments on that? On what do you think some of the solutions can be in Pittsburgh to protect, continue protecting, people in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, we talk about the community, and I just want to mention, in case we have other partners online, is as a health plan, what can we do? And maybe, and that's important, because while the community is doing their job as a health plan and ensure, we need to also be stepping up. And some of the things we're doing is, just like this, partnering with agency like yours to help promote education, and I can't say how happy I am to be a part of this. But also, we're using funds, as we treat people, to partner with community to provide nutrition, meals. We're partnering to provide transportation, to those areas. Our group is partnering with, and I apologize, I'm blocking on the name of the program for women, where we went in and helped them. We remodeled and did some things with them. So those are some of the things we do. And then also having educational programs for professionals, for providers. And the other is, Portia, you mentioned, I think, telemedicine and starting a program. We certainly want to know about that so that we can get with you, and you can contact me so we can put you in, make sure that we become a provider, because the truth is, you can't do this without some kind of reimbursement.
Absolutely.
And so we want more providers who are culturally sensitive. So this is an opportunity for us to, say, okay, let's make sure that we have increased our provider pool, our telemedicine pool.
That's a good point, and great on a health, a health plan level. What your organization and other organizations. I mean, we all can be doing more on a personal, like, what even more as Black women, as Black people, we are can be very unhealthy. As compared to our white counterparts. I mean, that has been talked about, and that's why I was mentioned, like, hey, when others get get the cold, we get the flu, because of how we take care of our bodies, right? And some of that is cultural. And maybe I'll start with Dr. Scott. Joel, if you could, what are some things you feel like we African Americans, just personally, can be doing to be healthier people? Right now it's the COVID, it could be something else. And we're always the ones hit the worst. Obviously, because of how we take care of ourselves. What do you think we could be doing as more of a preventative care measure?
Yeah, no, that is a great question. I think Dr. Gary Webb mentioned earlier that the disparities in cardiovascular disease definitely played a role in the inequities that we saw relate to COVID-19. People with cardiovascular disease, diabetes, asthma, COPD experience more severe illness and more likely to be hospitalized. And so that preventive piece cannot be overstated. I think thinking about dietary behaviors and also, before I talk about that one, also be very cognizant and aware of the way that, these behaviors, physical activity, diet did not just, happen, but there's been a lot of structural factors that have contributed to some of these things that we see within the Black culture. And so acknowledging that and thinking about, well, how do we want things to be different and what needs to happen? And so when we think about diet and access to healthy food, fruits and vegetable intake, think about those foods that have been very close to us culturally. I grew up in North Carolina, so I love good macaroni and cheese and some collard greens and, all of that. And also being able to say, you know what, those are holiday foods, those are special event foods, but those are not foods that I consume every day. That I need to make sure that I'm having a balanced diet, that my diet reflects my health goals. I think the other thing is physical activity and thinking about, and I say physical activity, and I've kind of removed the word exercise from my vocabulary because I think it has such a negative connotation, and really seeing physical activity in a more holistic way as, again, part of my health goals, whether that's physical health, that's mental health, finding activities that we enjoy and that we can engage in regularly. And then on a more, system structural, level, making sure that access to those things, are there sidewalks in our communities? Are there biking trails? Accessibility, affordability of, if kids have bikes, but do they have a helmet, right? Do they have knee pads and all these other safety things that are, that add to the cost? And beginning to build those things in at an early age, I think is the other thing. My family, we go on vacation and trying to be intentional about getting some physical activity in. Can we go biking instead of, sitting down and watching another movie? Or can we go for a walk after we have dinner? And so just these little small baby steps begin to shift the culture within our own communities, within our own sphere of influence. And at the same time, working with bigger partners that can do some of those larger things like sidewalks and structural things and safe neighborhoods and crime. Like we can't, these things are married together. We have to talk about both at the same time, I believe.
And
I'd like to add
Dr. Doswell, Dr. Doswell, and you're also a nurse. Could you piggyback off of that in terms of in the schools, though, the school lunches? I mean, inside the schools, I don't know if you could speak to what, the institutions, the school systems are feeding.
Unfortunately, some are doing better and some are not. In the suburbs, a lot of the school lunches have been freshly prepared. They're not TV dinner type lunches. But in other places, they're not. I agree with Joel about what you eat at home. One of the activities that I do for my community, and it touches with mental health and food, I've made it my business with the Wilkinsburg Community Center to provide food packages for pets. And in doing that, I give them a sort of a bulleted list for each package of how you take care of your pet. Fresh water every day. I just found out recently, shouldn't leave pet food out all day. And the same thing is with our food. You mentioned about eating chicken, preparing chicken. That can be a dangerous thing. Knowing how to wash your hands. Don't leave that chicken out all day. Don't leave that turkey out all day. And we tend to do those kinds of things sometimes. So just teaching that. And then listening to the food poisoning alerts that come on the news. And some news stations in Pittsburgh are doing that very faithfully. They're telling you when certain foods are being recalled, knowing that. We just had that experience with formula, baby formula. And again, mothers, if you can, breastfeed is a good idea. So I think all of those kinds of things also should be remembered.
Dr. Doswell, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I don't think as a community, African American people, we're not putting any emphasis on our gut health and how food is prepared. Getting food poison, all that stuff affects your gut. Even how the food is prepared, leaving it out and then still eating it. You know what I'm saying? And we think that, those things won't add up in the long run or affect us, but it does, especially if we get hit by something like a disease, COVID, all those things. If we are concentrating on our gut health, what we're putting in our system, we can be healthier people to help us, withstand, the storm, if another COVID or something else comes about. So that is definitely important. So thank you so much, Dr. Doswell, for mentioning that. So, ladies, I thank you all for being a part of this panel discussion. It was very, very insightful about the things that we can be doing, preventative care on an institutional level, on a healthcare level, a healthcare plan level, on a personal level, and just kind of what's going on in our community, in the Black community, in terms of vaccine hesitancy, and that the pandemic is not over, and that people still need to be proactive about their health and protecting themselves, all across the board, and providing solutions for that. The great solutions about institutions can step up and still be mandating different things. So the more we do need to continue to talk about it, just because it seems like we're not, we're out of the storm. The storm is over, and then we stop talking about it. People are just we're not talking about it like we are now. Then it's, people are going to think, well, I don't need to, protect myself. I don't need to do anything else. I'm good. So it's important that we keep these conversations going. And I thank you all for being a part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay. So that was a very insightful conversation. I thank all the panelists for participating in that COVID panel discussion. Continue with your comments and your questions. Also in the comments, you will see the survey. There is a survey in the comments to let us know how you're liking things. We have about 2 more workshops to go. So by this time, I think, you should know if you're liking what you're hearing. Let us know how we can improve. Please let us know before, where was your mental state before, hearing some of the things that you heard on today's workshop series? Has it changed, after? So those are some of the type of questions that are in the survey. So please, we should be putting the survey in the comments right now. So definitely look out for that. We should be putting it up, and hopefully we'll continue. Yes, we'll continue to put the survey in the comments, and we'll also be sending it out to the emails for those who have registered. So please comment with the survey. In addition, if you're like what you're hearing, please become a part of our sisterhood at membership.blackgirlhealth.com. If you're a fitness coach, if you're a therapist, if you're a provider, and you want to host these type of workshops that we do every month in different cities, to inform more African-American women about different options that they can take to improve their health, then become a member. We want you to become a partner member, and you can go to membership.blackgirlhealth.com. So we will be back right after the break.
Sometimes we need the extra encouragement. We need support, and Black Girl Health is a movement.
Oh, I love getting all the emails with the recipes, and now the new workout videos that we get daily. I now get CrossFit videos right to my email. So that means that it holds me accountable, and I have something to do every day.
I work out at Highmark Fitness Yoga Studio, and so it just helps to bring more people into my class, know that I'm out there teaching yoga in the community.
Being a BJH member means connecting with other women, networking, and being a part of a movement.
I am Kim Nelson Wright, and I am Black Girl Health.
I'm Kimberly Perry, and I am Black Girl Health.
Sherelle Moore Tucker, and I am Black Girl Health. sometimes we need the extra encouragement. We need support, and Black Girl Health is a movement.
Oh, I love getting all the emails with the recipes and now the new workout videos that we get daily. I now get CrossFit videos right to my email. So that means that it holds me accountable and I have something to do every day.
I work out at Pies Fitness Yoga Studio, and so it just helps to bring more people into my class, know that I'm out there teaching yoga in the community.
Being a BJH member means connecting with other women, networking, and being a part of a movement.
I am Kim Nelson-Wright, and I am Black Girl Health.
I'm Kimberly Perry, and I am Black Girl Health.
Sherelle Moore Tucker, and I am Black Girl Health.
Black Girl Health Foundation presents Minds Matter Pittsburgh in partnership with Highmark Wholecare. Additional sponsors include Housing Authority, City of Pittsburgh, Highmark Allegheny Health Network, the Kingsley Association, and Black Girl Health, LLC.
Nestled between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh sits the capital city of Pennsylvania, Harrisburg. Beyond having the unique distinction as the training center for the Union Army during the Civil War and the present location of the National Civil War Museum, Harrisburg now serves as home to a new organization fighting a new battle, Black Girl Health. Black Girl Health is a digital publishing company. Our mission is to transform everyday minority women into healthier individuals. We focus our efforts on social media, online commercials, and community outreach. In 2015, Black Girl Health saw great success on Facebook, using articles and creating a newscast to disseminate NLM information and resources as part of the Pop the Question HIV awareness campaign.
Pop the Question is really just women taking control of their sexual health. When you think of Pop the Question, you probably think of a man getting down on one knee and asking their partner to marry them. Instead, this is the woman maybe not getting down on her knee, but asking that man to go get tested.
Using HIV information from AidSource and Medline Plus, BGH expanded their Pop the Question campaign in 2016 to another social media network frequently used by the target audience, Instagram. Social media assistant Ashley Manning converted text-based NLM articles to short-format videos, then published those videos weekly on the BGH Instagram page for its followers.
HIV is definitely a sensitive topic. It's something that a lot of people don't feel comfortable talking about. There's definitely a huge stigma around HIV in the minority community. So bringing this information to them on social media through video, it makes them feel more comfortable sharing it and talking about it with others.
To help in the fight to raise awareness, BGH recruited help from social media influencer Miss J DMV.
So how many women has he been with? Oh, Heather, Marie, and Tanya. Oh, that's not bad. 3. And Brittany, and Tanya's sister, and Mackenzie.
Ladies, are you unsure about your man's HIV status? If so, it might be time to pop the question. Visit blackgirlhealth.com today, and we'll show you how.
Bringing comedy to a topic that isn't fun to talk about really made the content more engaging.
Capitalizing on the viral reach of the video, Ms. J instructed her following to navigate to the BGH website where they could fill out a survey evaluating their knowledge of HIV and how to pop the question.
It opened up an avenue for us to have a dialogue about how to pop the question, when to pop the question, and if you have popped the question correctly.
BGH's staff assistant, Carlise Kierton, played an integral role in turning our digital interactions with minority women into real-world actions at Black Girl Health's second annual Kickstart Health and Wellness Expo.
As a part of our Pop the Question campaign, we're here at the Kickstart Women's Health Expo, and we're offering women an option to get screened for HIV.
The increased awareness of NLM's HIV information on social media encouraged women to not only attend the expo, but garnered several on-site testings as well, showing once and for all in the battle for minority women's health in Harrisburg, allies prove more powerful than obstacles.
Sometimes we need that extra encouragement. We need support, and Black Girl Health is a movement.
Oh, I love getting all the emails with the recipes and now the new workout videos that we get daily. I now get CrossFit videos right to my email. So that means that it holds me accountable and I have something to do every day.
I work out of Highmark Yoga Studio, and so it just helps to bring more people into my class, know that I'm out there teaching yoga in the community.
Being a BJH member means connecting with other women, networking, and being a part of a movement.
I am Kim Nelson Wright, and I am Black Girl Health.
I'm Kimberly Perry, and I am Black Girl Health.
Sherelle Moore Tucker, and I am Black Girl Health.
Hi, I'm Darla Timbo, Dr. Darla Timbo. I'm going to be talking with everyone today about suicide awareness, a pretty important topic, a topic that, you know, sometimes as Black girls and Black women, we don't, you know, approach a lot. So let's just get to it. It gets better. And this is a suicide awareness topic. So there are tons of stats, tons of information regarding some issues that we've had around suicide awareness prior to COVID and after COVID. So we may have noticed in our communities that COVID is really, you know, taking a toll on us as Black girls and as Black women. So the rates of suicide are absolutely rising with Black youth in the United States, COVID having a very significant effect on that. Black people face increased rates and risk factors that, you know, other groups may not experience in the same way that we do. Some of these include racism, higher rates of unemployment and financial and food insecurities. And a lot of these we've seen post-COVID really increase. You know, people losing their jobs, people, you know, downsizing, people not able to kind of get that financial income in the ways that we may have once been able to. There are a ton of disparities related to health, and then our limited access to healthcare and mental health care cause some really significant concerns and can cause us to, you know, have that increased risk for suicidality. Despite this heavy burden, and historically speaking, Black people and individuals in other kind of racial and ethnic minority groups, those BIPOC groups that we talk a lot about, we've experienced like lower than average suicide rates until now, until we are seeing this increase currently in our Black youth. So as of 2018, suicide became the second leading cause of death in Black children ages 10 to 14. And the third leading cause of death in Black adolescents aged 15 to 19. So researchers found that, you know, these younger Black clients and younger Black people were more likely to die than their white their white peers by suicide. So, we can think of many different factors that could potentially play a role, some of which I've already mentioned, and, some of which I think adults struggle with as well. It's really difficult to regulate emotions, to even articulate, what the emotions are associated with different things that we're feeling. So if adults have a difficult time kind of experiencing that, I can absolutely, imagine that 10 to 14, 15 to 19-year-olds would have a difficult time kind of articulating and expressing those feelings as well. Any adults that are kind of watching this right now, we can take ourselves back to a time when we were an adolescent or we were a teen, and trying to find the words to really describe how we felt super significant. Suicide rates of Black males ages 15 to 24 years old rose by 47% between 2013 and 2019. Between 2020 and 2022, there's some ongoing research. We have some numbers, but numbers are still kind of being solidified because that was the entire, we're still kind of feeling some of those residuals from COVID, but that was when we were in the thick of things. By 59% for Black females of the same age, that number increased. It increased 59%, and then it decreased in white youth. They saw a decrease in white youth researchers. So from 2015 to 2017, 52% of Black teen males who died from suicide used a firearm to complete suicide, a method with a fatality rate of nearly 90%. And then another 34% use strangulation, suffocation, which has been, fatal for about 60% of clients that utilize that modality. So, the methods in which our young Black youth are using to complete suicide are pretty significant, and there are ways in which, it can be done very easily. So with all of the risk factors combined and the things that we think about, the things that we're not able to articulate, that really increases our risk. So why is this happening? Not a researcher, not a therapist, not a psychologist. No one has a very definitive answer as to why, teens are at this kind of increased risk for suicide. Data from a state-based surveillance system to better understand some of the characteristics that we're talking about, some of the risk factors, have led, have increased the factors and have also led us to look at reasons why, these deaths are so significant and why they're on the rise. So most of the Black children who have died by suicide did not have a current mental health concern. But of those who did have a current mental health concern, younger children were more likely than older children to have been diagnosed with ADHD. So, there are some components of ADHD, hyperactivity, some impulsive behaviors that could lead, professionals and researchers to, see ADHD as a possible precursor. But, there are a lot of Black children, a lot of teens who have not disclosed that they're struggling with anything, nor have they ever been treated by a clinician. Again, going back to, really having difficulty telling someone how you feel, along with all of the other kind of stigma and myth around mental health that hopefully, a program like this will dispel. So younger kids were also more likely to have experienced problems in school or with their families. So we, if we see any stories about suicide in the news, it could have been associated with, some issues at school, bullying, not feeling like they fit in, maybe a parent that's struggling with addiction, and many different factors. So those are just to name a few, but usually what we see are issues at school or at home. For girls, a diagnosis of depression or anxiety is absolutely more common than it is for boys. Our young Black boys are more disproportionately diagnosed with ADHD. Sometimes conduct disorder, but for girls, because of the way society, sets it up for women to receive different types of treatment, or to be open to requesting help a little more than males would. Girls are more often diagnosed with anxiety and depression. They come forward more often. About 9% of older girls experience a relationship crisis before suicide or a suicide attempt, and nearly 20% had an argument within 24 hours of their death. So this doesn't have to be necessarily like a romantic thing, but they do find that, some statistics around relationships are increased with those romantic relationships and adolescent girls. But it could also include relationship dynamics with a sibling or a parent or something like that. So there are many different signs that someone is struggling, but I want to put a disclaimer before I start talking about this. If you know anyone who has completed suicide or attempted suicide, and you did not recognize any signs or symptoms that they were struggling, please don't blame yourself. These signs that, I'm going to talk about are risk factors, are things that we may or may not be able to see based on our own perceptions, based on our own lived experiences. It's just a guide. It's just a guide. And, that's why we're here to kind of learn and kind of pick up some of these different nuggets to take away. But it's very hard to notice if someone's struggling at times, especially if we're, all kind of living this Black experience, this lived Black experience. And on some level, these could be risk factors for all of us. So having a mental illness, having previously been diagnosed, particularly depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety disorder, conduct disorder, ADHD, and all of these being left untreated really increase some of those risk factors around suicidal behaviors. Excuse me. Having a substance use disorder. So someone struggling with substance, or if you notice an adolescent or a teen kind of picking up some of those, addictive behaviors that could lead to a full-blown substance use disorder. Risk factor. Being seriously ill, living with a chronic or terminal illness, or being in a significant long-term pain. Suffering from a traumatic brain injury, and that could happen from an accident or fall, anything like that. Stressful life situations, especially those that are prolonged. So if someone is being bullied, and that's been going on year after year as they're going through middle school, as they're emerging into high school, relationship problems with a significant other, a boyfriend or a girlfriend, parents, siblings, all of that. Sudden stressful or traumatic situations, like the loss of a loved one. A lot of our teens are dealing with death, are dealing with violence, in many different ways. And from the time that I grew up, having lost friends and loved ones at a young age, it seems like that is significantly increasing. So, really big risk factor that I'm seeing, while treating young people. So having experienced childhood trauma and abuse, having access to lethal means, being exposed to another person's suicide or suicide attempt, and then having previous suicide attempts themselves, and then a family history of suicidality, whether the family member completed suicide or not, or they just know about it. So all of these things could be potential risk factors for our young women, our young men. Things that are easy to see, or that may be easy to see. We see this youth talking about dying or wanting to die. that can be a very glaring thing. It can raise some red flags for all of us. You seem pretty preoccupied with death. Let me follow that up with a few questions, which we'll talk about. Talking about feeling empty, hopeless, or having no way out of a particular problem. When we think about the depressive triad, hopelessness, feeling sad, not having anything to kind of look forward to, having that empty feeling, hopelessness is usually at the top of that triad when we think about it, not feeling like there is anything to look forward to, or there's no tomorrow. Mentioning strong feelings of guilt and shame. Guilt is, I did a bad thing, but I'm not necessarily a bad person. And shame is very internalized. I am a bad person. Nothing good comes from me. Everything that I do or I touch that I'm involved in turns out bad because I am bad. Really, really big red flag there that can lead back to that kind of depressive triad and feelings of hopelessness. It's a very internalized way to walk through life. So talking about not having a reason to live, or that others will be better off without them. Social withdrawal, isolation, you see them staying in their room a lot, not engaging with friends or loved ones, disengaging from maybe sports or, other activities, extracurriculars that they might have been involved with, giving away personal items, wrapping up loose ends. So it looks as if they may be going somewhere. Giving away something that is a very prized possession to them. And then saying goodbye to friends and family. And people can say goodbye in a myriad of ways, including, giving away things, including just saying goodbye, leaving a letter or a note, posting something on social media. So these are things that could be potentially easier to see or identify. And then we want to say something. So some signs are more difficult to see than the ones that I previously talked about. So an unusual change in, behavior. This is common for someone who's suicidal, but it's easy to overlook because the change might not be super noticeable. It might not be related to depression or feelings of hopelessness. They're not very blatant with the change. It may be these very subtle changes that are super difficult to detect. Changes in sleeping patterns, so shifting from maybe waking up at a normal time, having this kind of normal routine that we think about, to sleeping all day, sleeping at odd times during the day. Or it could be the complete opposite, staying up all hours of the day and night, in which that could almost look like a hypomanic or manic episode. So any changes in sleeping pattern that you may notice are, kind of off. Also pretty difficult to detect because we all shift our sleeping patterns, especially when the seasons change. We all don't have the same sleeping pattern throughout our entire lives. So that's a very hard thing to pinpoint, with regard to someone feeling suicidal or not. Access to lethal means. We don't always know who has access to lethal means. Some young people, the prevalence rate for firearms is significant, but there's a pretty high prevalence rate for completing suicide with pills, medication that may be left around that they may get from a friend. So that overdose element. Those are absolutely lethal means, and that's very difficult to detect. We don't always know what someone has access to. Emotional distance. An emotional distance can be associated with many different things. Sometimes as adults, we just work a lot and, we might just be distant physically, emotionally, because we're overwhelmed with working or taking care of a family. In some of our teens that we know, they are taking on some of those parental roles, some of those adult-like roles, role reversal, and, them becoming emotionally distant may not always be easy to pick up. We may just be thinking like, okay, this youth is preparing for college or, involved in a lot of extracurriculars. I'm not able to detect anything. And then physical pain. People often overlook symptoms of physical pain, and people don't always tell us, when they're hurting physically. Sometimes if someone's struggling with depression or anxiety or bipolar disorder, we can kind of manifest physiological symptoms because of that mental health disorder. So we are diagnosed with depression first, and then physical pain, that physiological element kind of comes up after, but that may not be disclosed in the same way. So these are some of the signs that are pretty difficult to detect, and we have a hard time kind of going about figuring out. Now I talked about some easy ones. I talked about some more difficult ones and some risk factors, but they all can be very difficult to detect, especially if we don't know what we're looking for. So what can we do as adults, as friends, as loved ones, as a system to try to circumvent suicide, try to treat suicide, try to help people, help young people that are struggling? So we can strengthen economic supports, strengthen that financial security, stabilize maybe housing or other resources in the community. This is much easier said than done. This absolutely takes a systems approach. But just kind of putting it out there as we're talking about it, we have to strengthen these economic supports for everybody, especially our youth. Strengthen and access delivery of suicide care. So, is mental health coverage available? Is health insurance in navigating these policies or creating these policies that allow, underserved and underrepresented groups of people, which include Black teens, Black girls, are they allowed to kind of seek out the treatment that they need? Reduce provider shortage in underserved areas. When I was growing up, I did not see any psychologists that looked like me. Not until very recently in my life had I met another Black psychologist. So representation absolutely matters, and representation in our communities with people kind of providing those services is a thing. Also another systemic change. Safe suicide care through these different systems changes. When someone presents in treatment, how do we approach suicide? Do we, not have a plan in place? Do we overreact? Do we underreact? So looking at it from kind of a more micro level as we think about that. How do we want to approach these young women with regard to suicidal feelings around depression, feelings around guilt and shame, all of the above. Create protective environments. So reduce access to lethal means. This is something we can absolutely do on a micro level. If you know that you can help someone or you can reduce access, do so. Don't leave medication, laying around at the house. If you have a firearm, disassemble it, lock it up. Also, creating a protective environment can include opening the floor for conversations around depression, around sadness, around suicidal thoughts, without the teen feeling like, or without anyone, for that matter, feeling like, I'm going to be condemned. If I talk about this, I'm going to be judged. So creating those non-judgmental spaces that allow people to be authentic and really talk about, how they feel. Organize policies, organize a culture that creates protective features, community-based policies to reduce excessive alcohol use. So there are community policies around different things, and alcohol is a big one. And, I'm not going to go into that a lot, but it's definitely grouped with substance use, and any substance, even if someone is having suicidal thoughts. So they don't have a plan, they don't have intent they don't have the means to do it, but they may have suicidal thoughts associated with depression. Any substance can lower that inhibition and allow someone to kind of move forward in their thought process around suicide. So kind of reducing access to all of this stuff, to any substance that could be potentially fatal. Promote connectedness. So peer groups, programs like this, community engagement, teach coping and problem solving skills. So social emotional learning, parenting skills, family relationships programs. So there are some therapists in the Pittsburgh area that do relational therapy. They focus on that. They've been trained in that. And there are also therapists that have other skill sets, cognitive behavioral therapy, reality therapy, Gestalt-based therapy, that teaches different coping mechanisms, very strategic things that young people can use, when they're feeling suicidal. So some of those things might include positive self-talk, very simple, very straightforward. If you're being overwhelmed with thoughts about life not going well, what is something that you can possibly look forward to? And can you say that to yourself out loud? So just, kind of one example of kind of the various coping skills that one would work with somebody with in therapy. So identify supportive people. Gatekeeper training, crisis intervention. Where are these crisis programs? Treatment for people at risk of suicide, and then treatment to prevent reattempts. So there's Resolve Crisis Network here in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh. There's also Western Psychiatric Hospital. There's also Mercy Behavioral Health, which is located on the north side. There's a program on the south side. And also, kind of creating these peer-based groups, which, there are several peer-based groups that are located at local churches in the area that can kind of, provide support, not necessarily therapy if someone's looking for therapy, but support for individuals who are, really having a hard time. And then look and assess and try to prevent future risk. So postvention, what happens if someone does attempt suicide, but they don't complete suicide? What can happen after that? So, that person may need to be evaluated. Is there an underlying diagnosis that, we may have missed? Get that person into therapy right away. Assess whether hopelessness is a thing that's on the table. And typically hopelessness is a thing that's on the table when we can't see past right now, today, don't have anything to look forward to tomorrow. And if we go back really quick to coping skills and problem solving, the one example that I gave when thinking about, positive self-talk and what do we have to look forward to, that can be kind of one method that moves us into therapy. We have something to look forward to, and we have someone to look forward to kind of exploring it with. So those will be some general things from a systemic approach that we can do. And then some things from a more micro level approach that we can do is offer support. If anyone comes to me or to anyone listening on here and says that, they're suicidal, or they don't use those words, but they just say like, I'm having a really difficult time in life, and, I don't feel like I have anything to look forward to. Be supportive. One thing that I put on the slide here is we should probably not kind of, there are things that we don't want to say. We don't want to devalue the way someone feels because, their feelings are valid, and so sometimes listening, just simply listening, not really offering too much more than that. Asking some questions, providing certain things, providing resources. So I put a couple of examples up here that I want to talk about briefly. So when we offer support, you mean so much to me. I can't imagine life without you. Take a moment to let a friend know just how much you love and care for them. Friend, family member, all of the above. So express from your perspective how much you love and care for that person. I know that you're in pain. Again, validate how someone feels. Reiterate to them that, how they feel is important, and you're not trying to invalidate, how they feel or dismiss how they feel. We have to validate how people feel in order to kind of offer that supportive base. This allows people to feel comfortable enough to be authentic and to open up about what's really going on. As soon as we invalidate someone, as soon as we kind of dismiss, oh, it's not that serious, it's not that real, it is to them. It absolutely is to them. And those words that kind of dismiss that, further kind of allow that person to shut down. Things that we don't want to say. You don't really want to die. You may say this out of fear, but try to stop yourself. Take the person very seriously, because they may, from a very serious perspective, want to die. May feel like there is no life, kind of left for them. I remember I had a client, and she was not an adolescent girl, but an older Black woman, about 80 years old. And, she came to a session one day and she said, I am old and I'm tired. And, so we kind of explored, what do you mean by tired? There are many different levels to somebody saying that they're tired. And she talked a lot about not really having a purpose on this earth anymore. She had raised her kids, her grandkids didn't come visit, her kids didn't really, interact with her in a way that she had desired. She felt alone. She felt lonely. Her husband had passed away. She lived by herself, and she didn't feel like there was any more living that could be done. That is how we would define hopelessness. She had no more hope in the life that she was currently living. And how dismissive would it have been for me to say, Miss So-and-so, you don't really want to die. You're just saying that. But instead, offering support, listening, letting her know that there are people, that you are very important to. So we don't want to say you don't really want to die. We don't want to dismiss them in that way. You have too much to live for. Everything will blow over. This statement absolutely undermines how someone feels. Maybe they don't have too much to live for. Maybe they don't feel as though they have too much to live for. Maybe things won't blow over as easy as one might hope. Everybody's got their problems. While that may be true, when someone's suicidal, they feel they don't have another option. They feel like their problem is, very, very, very significant. So, like I said, while everyone does have, something that they might have to deal with throughout their lifetime, we still don't want to make someone's problem insignificant. Make them feel as though what they're telling us is not important. They may feel like there really is no other option. So ask some questions. If you see some of these, easier kind of risk factors, if you notice maybe some of the more difficult risk factors, if you hear someone talking in a way that causes concern, maybe they're not suicidal. But how will you know that if you don't ask? So ask some very important questions. Do you think about hurting yourself? You can also be very direct. Do you think about killing yourself? Are you having thoughts of killing yourself? Are you having thoughts about dying? Do you think your friends and family will be better off without you? Do you think your friends and family will be better off if you killed yourself? You can be very direct with the questions. Asking the questions, an old myth is that, if we ask people these questions, if we ask young people these questions, it will plant the seed. That's absolutely a myth. It's not true. If someone has the ideas around suicidality, they're already thinking these things. They're already thinking of a plan. They already have the intention of doing it. So us asking questions isn't going to further the intent, isn't going to further the idea, but it will let them know that we're very serious about caring for them. And we are open, we're there. And the word death and dying isn't something that's going to easily scare us off, and they may deep down want to be asked, want to know someone cares that much to ask them a very direct question like, are you thinking of these things? You can ask them also, do you have a plan? Do you have the means to carry out that plan? What do you have access to? And see what they say. Many a times I've asked these questions very directly to people, and people will say, yes, I do have a plan. And based on what their plan is, do you have means to carry out this plan? Yeah, I can get, pills from this place. I can get drugs from this place. I can overdose in this way. I have access to this firearm. I have this amount of time where I'm by myself and I'm alone and I'm able to do it. So, ask these questions, and then, there are absolutely steps to take after that. And I'll mention a few of those. Know when it's time to act. So get a therapist involved, seek immediate help. The prevalence for suicidal thoughts without the intention of doing it, without access to means, is the percentage is pretty high. I would say if I had to guess without any like hard numbers in front of me, probably 85 to 90% of the population. And if we're just thinking about Black people, probably about 85 to 90% of Black people kind of think about or have had experienced a suicidal thought. Now, the thought is not an intention, like I said, and it may be fleeting. It may be during a very difficult time. So if you've experienced a significant loss, lost your job or the death of a loved one, a fleeting thought, a fleeting suicidal thought may come in and go out within a few days. Oh man, I really miss this person. I'm hurting so bad. I can't believe that this has happened in my life or my family. If I could just go to sleep and not wake up, that might take care of everything. That would prompt, a call to a therapist. Maybe that's something you want to flesh out. Maybe that's something that you want to help, that teen or that young girl kind of talk about and explore and navigate those emotions and those feelings around like whatever the experience is. So I just use death and dying as an example, but those fleeting suicidal thoughts can come in and out with many things. I'm getting bullied at school, breaking up with a significant other, all of those different things. So it's time to get a therapist involved at that point, a professional that can help to flush out some of those emotions, some of those thoughts and feelings, and kind of navigate, help that young person navigate where they're at. And then if a person, you ask some of these very direct questions and a person says, yeah, I am suicidal. I have a plan. I have the intention on doing it. I have access to the means. That's where we want to seek immediate help. So you can call 911. You can, depending on some of the circumstances, which I won't get into all of them, you may be able to involuntarily get that person some help or, get them into the hospital in an involuntary way. And then, you may want to get some other kind of professionals involved at that point if they pose a risk to themselves or someone else. So that becomes pretty significant at that point. And trying to find a therapist at that point when someone says that they have the intent, they have the means, they have the access, therapy definitely needs to come after that person gets some immediate help, typically at a hospital or a crisis center. Once they're treated, then, they kind of step down to that level of care below that and seek help from a therapist. So this is just, if this PowerPoint is shared with all of you, this is nothing that we need to watch right now, but it's just kind of a video that talks about addressing Black youth suicide. Again, just to come back to this a little bit, looking at the rates, especially post-COVID, Black youth, Black females have really increased in their rates of suicidality, which is suicidal thoughts without the intent, and also the completion of suicide. So those rates have really rose, and this video just kind of goes into that and talks about it a little bit, and gives us an overview of what that might look like. So everything that I talked about today. If you know anyone that is suicidal, that has struggled with suicide attempts in the past, that has a family of that has a history of suicide in their family, please reach out. I put some resources here and some reference information on that last PowerPoint slide. But here in Pittsburgh, we have Resolve Crisis Network, and that is a very it's embedded in one of our Black communities here in Pittsburgh, but it's also one of the resources that people can go, if they're struggling with suicidal thoughts, and also with intent and a plan. Also Western Psychiatric Hospital, and also different therapists in the area are absolutely available. So I have a question here. What are your thoughts about so many going to social media for a cry for help? Yeah, absolutely. I've seen that a lot. And I have not only seen that in our young people, but I've also seen that in adults. Social media allows us to have a platform to create a persona that is not really us. So we can, say or do things that typically we may not say or do in front of other people or to someone's face. It kind of gives us, to a certain extent, this somewhat of a shield to hide behind. I think people do reach out on social media for help. And I think that sometimes it's looked at as maybe not as significant, but from a clinical standpoint, I think it's very significant, because if we look at some of the personas that people create, and we think about some of the ways in which people act behind social media and then also in person, even if the person doesn't say that they're suicidal or having suicidal thoughts, sometimes that's a cry enough. Sometimes it's a big enough deal to say, hey, let's intervene. Let's get this person some help if they want it. But I do think people go to social media for help. And there are also, I know that, and I don't know, I don't want to give any misinformation, but I don't know if we do this so much here in Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh, but in some states, there are people that are on social media kind of trolling, for a lack of a better word. That's not the word I wanted to use, but they're online looking, and if people are identifying as being suicidal or things like that, they're intervening and getting them some help. I have had several clients and several people over the years that have reached out on social media. So I have, a professional social media Facebook page and a professional social media Instagram page. And I have had people message me and say, I'm feeling away. I'm feeling suicidal. In our community, people might say I'm having a nervous breakdown. People might say, I'm feeling away or something like that. And, without them having to explain too much right off the bat, culturally, from a cultural perspective, I get that. And then that allows me to ask some more questions, even if it's on social media. So I'll message them back. And, just to the level that they feel comfortable. What are you going through? What might you need? How can I help you? How can I listen? And, from there, I have been able to kind of get people to the hospital. I've been able to direct the police to people's homes who had engaged in, attempting suicide. So, yeah, people cry out for help a lot on social media. And if anyone is doing that, or that's what you suspect, please go back to some of those questions that I talked about and ask outright. You may not necessarily want to ask in the comments, but you can. You may want to privately message the person or so and just directly ask, are you suicidal? Are you thinking about killing yourself? Are you okay? Are you okay? Is there any way that I can help you? And I think for a lot of people, that's what they're looking for. Somebody who is willing to listen and willing to help, help them get the help that they need. Yeah, that was a good question.
All right. Well, Dr. Darla, thank you so much for, giving us so much great advice about how we can protect ourselves and how we can protect our youth. Asking the questions is the first step. Not being afraid to ask people questions.
Absolutely.
And then always extending a hand to offer people help and support. And I did not know about the trolling, I guess, on Facebook, or when they see different things that may lead to maybe someone who is suicide or a young person who is suicide, that they're automatically looking for that and trying to get them help. I didn't even know that was
Yeah, it's not real prevalent here. I haven't heard about it here, like in our Pittsburgh area, but in some other states, I've heard of it. They also troll for sex offenders too online. So there's these two different kind of camps that and they do the sex offender trolling in every state. So
Yeah, absolutely. And two, do you see? I just have a question. Do you see more, Black women than Black men, or Black girls than Black boys, and who tend to have in Pittsburgh, who are having these maybe thoughts and are seeking you for help? And if so, if you are seeing more Black women, what do you think what do you think it stems from, those suicidal thoughts, and more so in Black women, or Black girls, I should say, especially?
Okay. So historically, I've seen more women, girls and women, present in general with like depressive symptoms, suicidal thoughts. But over the past several years, even prior to the pandemic, I would say maybe like a year or two prior to the pandemic, I've seen an influx in men, Black men, stating, that they were having issues with depression or suicidality. So I'm seeing an increase across the board now in my own practice. Going back to Black women and Black girls, especially, one of the things that I really, really think suicidality is attributed to is this whole idea around the strong Black woman phenomenon, and feeling like we have to carry the weight of like the world on our shoulders. We have to accomplish a lot, work a lot harder, try to navigate these gatekeepers in different areas that we, might be trying to pursue. We have so much on our plate as Black women. And what I'm seeing, so a lot of the research talks about women, but I also see the same thing in like young girls too. Just the idea, like how we set our daughters up for living life as a Black woman. Oh, you stop crying. Don't start crying about this nonsense, because that's not going to get the job done. Suck it up, go out, do what you have to do. Getting jobs at young ages, like, it's not like this leisure thing. Like, I just want to work at McDonald's so I can have a couple dollars in my pocket. No, it's like, oh, I have to go to work because, I have to pay for this, or I have to take care of younger siblings, or I need a bus pass for this, or I need to be able to get an Uber. I guess an Uber now, that was on the bus. But, it was all of these different things. We kind of set our daughters up, like, be strong in these ways, don't cry. Don't allow anyone to break you down. Don't allow anyone to see your weakness. And I think we associate weakness with depression, suicidal thoughts, anxiety, all of these different things. And even though we're talking about it more and we're reaching out for help more, I still see that strong Black woman phenomenon, which has some pros connected to it, but mostly things that are a struggle for us. I see that manifesting significantly in like young Black girls.
And young Black girls. Can you, and two, just give us where can people reach you, especially if they feel that, their child in Pittsburgh may be struggling and needs some help and could be heading down the road of, having some suicidal thoughts or anything like that. Where can people reach you for help?
So my website is www.atlas counseling services with an S.org. So you'll see my picture with my hair done on that website, and my phone number and social media. My phone number is 412-206-9470. You can always call, leave a message, send a text, and I'll send you, like kind of a professional email and all that good stuff back. And then my email address is drtimbo, so Dr. Timbo at atlascounselingservices.org. And I, feel free to send an email. If I'm filled, if my book and my calendar is filled, I will absolutely warm transfer you to, several trusted Black professionals in the Pittsburgh area that I have really good relationships with. And if I, were struggling with mental health issues, I would go to these people. So, still feel free to contact me. And like I said, if I'm booked, I will absolutely warm transfer anyone to, another professional.
I love that. Dr. Timbo, thank you so much for joining us. You see the website right across the screen. If you're looking for help for yourself or for your child or someone please definitely reach out. Don't waste any more time. And the time is now to get help. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Timbo.
Thank you.
All right. So we have one more workshop to go. And, I hope that this has already been a day of so much information. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear how what you're learning. Has this changed the way you feel, your thoughts? Are we helping at all? Are we giving information? Oh, and that's the number that Dr. Timbo mentioned, to reach out directly, to her if you are having any issues with, maybe having some suicidal thoughts or know someone who has or is, please reach out to her. But again, please, in the comments right now, we have a survey. We just want you to spend like 2 minutes, really take 2 minutes of your time to let us know what your thoughts are. Are you learning anything? Has this changed the way that you feel, or your mental state at all, before or after? We want to hear from you. We want to get better. We hope that we can be back in Pittsburgh next year. So it's really important for you guys to just take 2 minutes to complete that survey that's in the comments right now. We will also be sending it out to people's emails, those who have registered. Those who have registered for the event, then we have your emails. But those who have not and are just seeing this online on Facebook, then please, just take some time to complete the survey for us. All right, so on to our last workshop of the day. We're wrapping up, y'all. Maternal depression. That's what we're going to talk about. We're talking about how to fight it. Don't let it, stick to us. Avoid it. So stay with us. We'll be back right after the break.
Black Girl Health Foundation presents Minds Matter Pittsburgh in partnership with Highmark Wholecare. Additional sponsors include Housing Authority, City of Pittsburgh, Highmark Allegheny Health Network, the Kingsley Association, and Black Girl Health, LLC.
sometimes we need the extra encouragement. We need support. And Black Girl Health is a movement.
Oh, I love getting all the emails with the recipes and now the new workout videos that we get daily. I now get CrossFit videos right to my email. So that means that it holds me accountable and I have something to do every day.
I work out of Highmark Yoga Studio, and so it just helps to bring more people into my class, know that I'm out there teaching yoga in the community.
Being a BJH member means connecting with other women, networking, and being a part of a movement.
I am Kim Nelson-Wright, and I am Black Girl Health.
I'm Kimberly Perry, and I am Black Girl Health.
Sherelle Moore Tucker, and I am Black Girl Health.
Good afternoon. My name is Kava Murray, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm going to be talking to you today about maternal depression and what this looks like for Black moms. We're going to talk about some symptoms, how you can cope, and where you can go for it. So we're going to talk about maternal depression, and it's often referred to as baby blues. But baby blues really isn't an accurate way to discuss maternal depression. It's really only a small section. It's a really common used term, and I think sometimes it's overused because it's, like I said, it's a very slight form of maternal depression. The term that is frequently used and accepted, and it minimizes some stigma. Perinatal mental health, which is a woman's mental health during pregnancy and postpartum period, is a better depression. This term not only includes depression, but it also includes anxiety, and in some cases, some symptoms of psychosis that can eventually manifest as bipolar disorder or other serious mental health conditions. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the stages of maternal depression. We have the prenatal depression, we have baby blues, we have postpartum depression or PPD, and then we have postpartum psychosis. Prenatal depression, of course, happens during your pregnancy. This can look like crying, weeping, feeling fatigue, appetite disturbance, loss of enjoyment in things that you used to find fun, and maybe some poor fetal attachment. When we talk about baby blues, we're looking at something that happens up to 2 weeks postpartum. Because it's only that 2-week period, I think that's why people are really comfortable discussing it and referring to the entire spectrum of maternal depression just as baby blues. Like I said, it lasts up to 2 weeks. It's easily resolved, sometimes just because you just get through that adjustment. We know having a baby changes your life, it changes your body. It just comes with so many different life adjustments. Baby blues looks like an exaggerated sense of empathy. You may feel a little anxious. You may have some mood swings, some ups and downs, some sleep disturbance, and you may also feel overwhelmed. When we talk about postpartum depression or PPD, this is where things start to get a little more serious. These symptoms last beyond that 2-week period that only covers the baby blues. And we're looking at serious symptoms, serious sleep disturbance, serious appetite disturbance, poor self-care. You're not taking care of yourself. You're not minding what your house looks like. You may not be taking care of your baby. Like I said, it's more severe. And then lastly, we have the postpartum psychosis. This is very severe, but it affects fewer moms. We're looking at maybe 1 to 2 moms per 1,000 a year. But postpartum psychosis, you're experiencing all the symptoms of prenatal depression, the baby blues, PPD, as well as some auditory hallucinations, delusions. You're going to have some insomnia, feelings of hopelessness, feeling agitated. But where we really get concerned is with the paranoia and the distrust of others, and possibly some, delirium. Next slide, please. All right, so let's talk about the difference between baby blues and postpartum depression. Like I said when we first started, the baby blues is a mild form of postpartum depression that most moms experience. It's very, very common and easily recognizable. Baby blues is a mild form, and researchers are really unsure of what causes it. We think it may be moms adjusting to this new stage in their life. You have this new person that's relying on you. Your body's going through some changes. Your life has changed. You're entering a new phase, and you're adjusting to your new normal. Because it is so common, the term can be misused, and the severity of the symptoms can be downplayed. When we think about postpartum depression, on the other hand, like I said, the symptoms are more severe and they tend to last more than 10 days. You are at greater risk for experiencing either one of these if you have a family history of depression, if you have a lack of a support system, and if you've had depression before. 1 in 7 new moms is going to experience postpartum depression. So like I said, this is something that is very, very common, but is very treatable. Next slide, please. So let's talk about how depression impacts moms. Moms with depression are 3.4 more times more likely to deliver prematurely. So what this is saying is that the depression and the stress related to it is affecting your body and can affect how you deliver your baby. They are also 4 times more likely to deliver a low birth weight baby, more likely to have obstetrical complications, less likely to breastfeed or breastfeed as long as recommended. So not only does depression affect a new mom's body, it also affects her ability to be a new mom, and it could also have effects for her new baby, as evidenced by the research here talking about, low birth weight and depression being a barrier to breastfeeding. If you are a therapist like me, you know that breastfeeding helps to build attachment, and a healthy attachment with a baby leads to good developmental outcomes with small children. Next slide, please. So what does this mean for Black moms? I'm going to echo what all the women have echoed or said here today, that Black women are just at a higher risk for most of the health disparities that we talked about today. And that's including postpartum depression. They're more likely to experience this than white women. We're also less likely to receive care due to the stigma or lack of access. I right now provide clinical support to Moving Depression, which is a perinatal mental health team of therapists. And a lot of times we end up with a waiting list because these moms don't know where else to turn to receive these mental health services. Or they're referred to us and they tell us that they don't need it because of the stigma that's attached to receiving mental health care. Maternal health experts say Black women often choose to struggle on their own out of fear of child welfare services. I have been a social worker for 14 years now, and this is a common trend. Folks do not want to reach out and get help and get solutions for their difficulties because they are fearful that they're going to lose their children. Their families are going to be broken up. Somebody's going to be monitoring them. Somebody's going to be judging them. Somebody's going to be giving them the message that they're not worthy or that they're incapable of dealing with, their mental health issues and the other things that come with that, and be a parent. The other side of that, I think I heard Dr. Timbo mention, is that as Black women, we get blessed with the crown of resilience. We're expected just to pick up and keep going. And we just figure, I don't have time to deal with that. I have these children to raise. I have this life to live. I have to keep moving. And that ultimately leads to suffering and silence. And we don't want that. We want folks to reach out regardless of the stigma and regardless of the fear of, these negative outcomes. Next slide, please. So what does all this mean for Black moms at risk? I heard somebody today mention social determinants of health. So when we think about social factors that can place Black moms at risk for PPD, we're talking about low income or education, living in a high stress environment, being exposed to trauma, experiencing food insecurity, lack of access to quality healthcare or healthcare coverage, being a single parent, and just having a family history, as I mentioned before, of depression or other mental health issues that have not really been addressed or resolved. When we talk about barriers to mental health care for Black mothers, we're looking at systematic racism. We're looking at poverty, income issues, transportation issues. And transportation not in terms of having a car, but transportation in ease of access of getting to your location. You're more likely to go see a therapist or see a medical provider if your drive is less than 15 minutes, or you only have to take one bus, or you only have to take a bus and not get off the bus and get on a train or get into an Uber or something like that. Insurance coverage. A lot of folks lately have been telling me, they have insurance, but they have a really high copay, and that's putting them in a bad spot. And then we have the stigma. When you talk about being a mom, a new mom especially, and being depressed, again, folks are worried about the stigma that you're not resilient, that you're weak, that you're incapable, and that you don't deserve, the life that you truly do deserve. The last barrier is too few culturally responsive or Black providers. We see this not only in the mental health arena, but in the physical health arena as well. Fortunately, I do know other, Black therapists. But since the COVID-19 pandemic, we've all been overwhelmed with work, but dedicated to getting the work done. A lot of times, you have to see a therapist that may or may not look like you. And then that experience plays into these social factors that I already talked to. So we just want to make sure that we're connecting these new moms with providers and doctors and therapists that look like them and that understand what they're going through, what brought them to that appointment, and give them the resources instead of the judgment that they need to improve their situation and live the healthy life that they deserve. Next slide, please. So what about the children? I have worked as a child, adolescent, and family therapist for years. And I always tell moms, take care of yourself. If you don't take care of you, you're going to struggle to take care of your children. So when we look at this, moms who are depressed have trouble caring for their children. They may respond negatively to their baby or not respond at all. Two things we definitely do not want to have happen. When that happens, that tends to play into that stigma. That's when Child Protective Services may become involved, and we don't want that to happen. Postpartum depression can also affect the mom's attachment to their new baby. When we look at the development of the baby, healthy attachments lead to healthy babies. They have good emotional health. They have positive behaviors. When moms are lacking that healthy attachment to their baby, these babies tend to grow up and experience behavioral disorders or difficulties like oppositional defiant disorder and other disruptive behavior disorders. Next slide, please. So what can Black moms do? Anytime we're dealing with depression or any other mental health concern, but specifically in this situation, maternal depression, we want to create a support network. That can look like your doctor, that can look like your church members, a clergy member, your friends, a nurse, a doula, a community health worker, a therapist, anybody that's going to be committed to helping you get through whatever you have to get through as an expecting and as a new mom. With the Moving Beyond Depression program, we always have these moms create a wellness plan. And a wellness plan can look like anything you want it to look like because it's going to benefit you. Write down what your goals are. If you want to identify a doula, write that on there. If you want to identify positive ways to cope with stress, write that on your plan. If you have specific directions or specific things you want to experience during labor, write that on your plan as well. But create a plan and include that support network in your plan so that you're being held accountable to being healthy and your support system knows how to properly support you. Journal your symptoms, concerns, and questions that you might have about your pregnancy. And then discuss those changes and questions with your doctor. If you do not trust your doctor, get a new one. Pregnancy is such a special and sensitive time in life. You have to have providers around you that believe in you, that you can trust, and that are going to support you, especially when we're talking about, maternal depression and PPD. When you discuss these changes with your doctor, be honest. Don't be ashamed to say, yes, I've been crying for days, or I've been isolating, or be honest with them. Tell them everything that you're feeling, and tell them that you have this wellness plan. And if you want to change your plan at any time, feel free to do that as well. And when all else fails, try to talk to a licensed therapist. I say licensed therapist because they're trained to deal with specialized issues like PPD. And if they're not able to help you, then they're able to connect you with additional health providers that are able to help you resolve that in a healthy way for you, and also for your baby and your children if you have them. Next slide, please. So anytime we talk about depression, I always tell people, get plenty of rest. When we talk about new moms, I always get the response, I don't have time, I have to do this, I have to do that. But make time to get some rest. Take a nap with your baby. Create a schedule for them and for you, and try to stick to that sleep schedule. Maintain a healthy diet. What you put into your body affects how you function as a mom, especially if you're breastfeeding. You don't want to eat anything or put anything into your body that it could potentially cause you harm or potentially cause your baby harm. Exercise when you can. A lot of times when I talk to folks about exercising, they think I'm talking about going to the gym and doing a full bodybuilder workout. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, get up and move around consistently for 2 to 3 minutes, nothing extreme. And I guarantee you, once you get those 3 minutes in, you'll feel good, and you'll want to do 5 and 10 and 15 or 20 minutes. But just start off small. Another thing I tell folks is to take a walk with your baby. Throw that baby in the stroller and take a walk around the block. I know folks are getting outside more, but be careful and be safe when you do that. We're still dealing with COVID-19, so throw a mask on and maybe drape something over your stroller. But get outside. The weather's finally getting better, and just get some exercise. This is a tech age. We all have a smartwatch of some sort, or we have a streaming platform. I tell my patients all the time, you can get on Amazon Prime and do a 3-minute workout, or you can get on there and do a 1-hour workout. There are so many different ways to get this exercise in that doesn't require going to the gym or getting a trainer or, having to buy all that fancy workout equipment and outfits. These are things you can do in your home while your baby's sleeping or together with your baby. Examine yourself for breastfeeding. I am always pro breastfeeding, but I realize that that's not the best thing for folks. Do not stress yourself out about this. Talk to your doctor, talk to your support team, talk to a lactation coach, but do things that are going to be helpful for you. And if that's not working, that's okay. The last point I really want to drive home is resist isolation. I've heard it mentioned so many times today that when you're depressed, you tend to sleep more, you tend to withdraw from folks, you tend to lose interest in things that used to make you happy. If you're doing that without a baby, imagine how dangerous that can be with a baby. You do not want to isolate yourself. That goes back to what I said about creating that wellness plan. Since the COVID pandemic, we've all experienced so many different life adjustments and so many different types of loss. And we've all probably been depressed at some point or another, whether it be depression-like or something heavier. But there are so many different things that we can do. So resist that isolation and set up a check-in system with your support network. My girlfriends and I, we're all very busy. They're mothers. I have one friend who has 7 children, and I have another friend who has 1. And we make it a point at least once a week just to say, I'm checking in. Do you need anything? Do you need to talk? We're just getting straight to the point. I know they love me. They know I love them. But we're making sure that we're checking in on each other because we're all going through something, and we don't want this to get any worse. We want to make sure that we know, that we have these supports and that we're utilizing them. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we're talking about just maternal depression, and I wanted to talk about some resources that we have for moms in the Pittsburgh area. We have Healthy Start. They provide a multitude of services for new and expecting moms. They have community health workers, they have social workers, they have Moving Beyond Depression that I provide the clinical support for. They have a fatherhood program that supports the dads so that dads can, support the moms and they can be better co-parents and support their children and eventually have healthier children. We have the Family Centers of Allegheny County. We have the Pittsburgh Brown Mamas, PERSAD for our LGBTQ friends. We have Pittsburgh Black Breastfeeding Circle. We have all these different organizations, including the Maya organization. I know the Maya organization is free of cost. They have doulas, they have a support group, they have an in-house therapist. They have so many resources that are geared towards helping moms who may be at risk for experiencing postpartum depression, have that support system built in for them. Next slide, please. Here are some mental health resources in the Pittsburgh area. We have the NEST program, which is sponsored by Western Behavioral. If you're from Pittsburgh, that used to be Western Psychiatric Institute, Moving Beyond Depression with Healthy Start, McGee Behavioral Health Services, and Women's Behavioral Health at Allegheny Health Network. And lastly, I put on here Therapy for Black Girls, because I do believe that people should be serviced by providers who look like them. Because you want to talk to somebody who understands you, can relate to your background, that won't have that stigma, that has that built-in cultural humility, and that's really going to be there for you as a support and not as a source of judgment. Next slide, please. Crisis mental health resources. Anytime I talk to anybody, I always talk about Resolve Crisis. That's a local crisis network in the Pittsburgh area. And then we have the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is the National Suicide Hotline. They also have a text number. I did not include that today on my slide. And then, of course, when all else fails, call 911. If you can't get anybody on the phone, if your support system, if everybody's just not available for you and you feel like you are at your wit's end, call 911 and let them know what you're going through. But I don't want anybody to be suffering in silence or suffering alone. Next slide. So this brings me to the end of my presentation on maternal depression. I can be reached at www.hopedeals.net if you are interested in seeking some therapy to help you deal with that. My telephone number is 412-228-0679.
Can you hear me? There we go. Thank you so much for giving us some, tips about maternal depression. It's interesting. Like, I had, postpartum depression after having my son. So I know what it feels like. And I think, some women don't really recognize it.
They don't. And I think too, with Black women, like I said, we get blessed and cursed with the crown of resilience. We want to take it on and we'll just push it to the side and we'll keep on pushing because we're expected to just get over things and not let anything hold us back or keep us down.
Absolutely. And I think, trying to find time, even not just after you have a child, but, during that journey of raising your child, just trying to find time to do for yourself so that depression doesn't prolong, because I think people, women can have depression, that postpartum depression, even years after they've had that child, so for so long. And that's because everything has been on that child and not on them. I don't know if you've experienced that before, or people who have experienced that, just it prolongs. It's not, not just right after you have the child.
Absolutely. Anytime we have a mental health issue that's not addressed, it tends to be persistent and then it becomes chronic, and then the severity of the symptoms picks up. So when we're looking at maternal depression, like I said, the people that I see, You know, a lot of them already have a history of depression or have a trauma history
Yeah.
or a mental health struggle. So then when they have a baby, they don't realize, like, in their minds, they're thinking, oh, I'm having this new baby. They're planning, gender reveals, they're planning baby showers, but nobody's really planning for the mental health aspect.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of pushing that to the side and not really addressing it. So then, you know, when baby is 2, 3, 4, getting ready to transition to school and your focus is starting to shift, here come those symptoms coming bubbling up to the top again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What would you say is the number one thing that, you know, women can if they recognize or experience to, you know, reach out? I know, you know, your information is on here, but to reach out for further analysis of, you know, if they have, you know, a depression or anxiety issue. What do you think is like the top thing that you get that people really need to pay attention to?
So what I'm gonna say is, folks really need to be honest at their follow-up, you know, appointments with their doctors. A lot of doctors' offices are giving depression screenings. I need folks to tell the truth on their depression screen and not be fearful of, you know, the results. You know, a lot of doctors with postpartum moms use the Edinburgh or the PHQ-9, and they're just some general questions, but tell the truth on those depression screens. I would also say reach out for help if you've had a baby and your symptoms persist more than 2 weeks. Like I mentioned, you know, having a baby, it's hormones. As women anyway, we're always going to have like a hormonal, little emotional thing.
Yeah.
But having a baby is a major life change. You got a whole person building up inside of you, and then, you know, you got the labor process, which could or could not be a good experience for you. I've heard people say they loved it and they would do it 10 times more if they could. And I've had folks say, no, not again. You know, and I think the other part is that people don't realize that in some instances, I've heard my clients say childbirth was considered a traumatic event for them. While they love their baby, they enjoy being a mom, the process of giving birth was truly a traumatic event for them.
Yeah, it definitely can be. It definitely can be. So, I mean, should people, like, as far as that symptom, is there a symptom that, I mean, there's so many different things that people can experience as, you know, being depressed. But do you think there is a big symptom that is most overlooked that could be a sign?
I would definitely say most of the symptoms are overlooked. Like I said, a lot of folks just lump it into, oh, she just has baby blues. It'll go away. You'll be all right. Just because baby blues specifically last that 2-week period.
Sure.
But if we're going to talk about like major red flags is when you're starting to feel suicidal, you're starting to have thoughts of harming your baby. You're starting to maybe hear things that nobody else is hearing or see things that nobody's hearing. All of a sudden, just a serious mistrust. Also, I'm taking into account to what your support system says. If you have a friend that taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, sis, this is what I'm noticing, receive that information.
Yeah.
We get defensive and, you know, ain't nothing wrong with me. I'm okay. I don't need this. I don't need that. But when your friend taps you and says, hey, sis, we need to talk.
Yeah, sometimes people can see you better than you can see yourself. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of this network today. And, you know, thank you for all your support. Amazing presentation. And I hope everybody, you know, really absorb the information to, you know, definitely apply it in their lives to prevent maternal depression. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Okay, everyone. That wraps up Minds Matter Pittsburgh. How did we do? Tell me, how did we do? We have in the comments right now, you will see that survey that I've been talking about, like every commercial break. Please just take 2 minutes, 1 minute. That's probably all it takes to complete. You know, what is it that you liked? What, you know, we can improve on? Has anything changed between before we started the program and after? Have you felt more inspired? Do you see things differently? You know, anything. We want to hear from you. So just take 1 or 2 minutes to complete that. And again, if you like what you were hearing today and want to be a part of this sisterhood, join us at membership.blackgirlhealth.com. If you want to host workshops, say you are a therapist or a fitness instructor or any sort of professional, and you want to host different workshops across, you know, the country in different cities, what have you, in your area, then please join our membership as a partner member. You go to membership.blackgirlhealth.com and sign up. Sign up as a partner member. I would again love to, I need to definitely, just thank our big partner, Highmark Wholecare, for making this possible, bringing Minds Matter Pittsburgh to Pittsburgh. So thank you so much, Minds Matter Wholecare. I would also, formerly known as Gateway, just in case some of you may not recognize Highmark Wholecare. The other sponsors I would like to thank, Housing Authority, City of Pittsburgh. I would like to thank Highmark, the Allegheny Network. I would like to thank the Kinsley Association and Black Girl Health LLC. Thank you all for being a part of Minds Matter Pittsburgh. We hope to bring this back to you guys another year. So fill out that survey, and everyone, all presenters, and everyone who watched, thank you for watching. And for now, I would like to say, just enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your weekend and try to, really take heed to everything you learned today and apply it to your life and hopefully improve your quality of life. All right, y'all. I'm Portia Johnson from Black Girl Health Foundation. Bye-bye.
Black Girl Health Foundation presents Minds Matter Pittsburgh in partnership with Highmark Wholecare. Additional sponsors include Housing Authority, City of Pittsburgh, Highmark Allegheny Health Network, the Kingsley Association, and Black Girl Health LLC.